Hopefully you guys can hear us out there in Twitch land. Welcome to another Em-8er Chief Chat. Oh yeah, Chief Chat is hidden right now. That needs to be unhidden.
Hidden?
Yeah.
Okay.
So while we are getting the Discord chat room opened up, we might as well start and give you an overview of what we're doing today. I'm going to go ahead and...
We don't have anyone in Discord yet.
Well, yeah, we don't have anyone in Discord because the Chief Chat room is hidden. You actually can't see it in the list. This is nothing new for us. We always have a... Okay, I think you have to mark it, take it off of private. Okay, while we're working on that, let's go over the format for today's chat. First of all, if you are listening to us on Twitch, then you'll want to also join our Discord server because we will be having prizes and raffles later on. There we go. I hear everyone coming into Chief Chat now. Awesome. All right. I see the people piling in here. Welcome to Chief Chat. Do we have the room working now?
Yes, sir. It's open. People are flooding in.
Awesome. All right. If you are in Discord and you're trying to figure out where to go to participate in Chief Chat, there is a little Chief Chat section under the General tab, and you can hop in there and join us as well. First of all, a warm welcome to all the Kamen America fans here today. Really glad to have you here. And of course, I'm here with Timothy Lim, creator of Kamen America, along with Mark. And why don't you introduce yourself, Tim?
Hey, how's it going out there? All the people who like Em-8er and who like Kamen America. It's a good day to be here. I'm really excited to see the turnout from yesterday. It was our biggest crowdfunder to launch as far as an opening date is concerned. So we just hope that we can keep the momentum going.
Yeah, it's been a tremendous first day, and I've just switched the stream over. I've raised the curtain. You can see my little VTuber avatar here. This started off as a parody, but I actually have a VTuber avatar, and I'm wearing an Em-8er t-shirt, and I have some tricks up my sleeve with this avatar too that I can show you later. And I got the crossover logo there.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
One thing I want to do before we start is to thank our sponsors. Em-8er is partnered with and sponsored by both Razer and AMD. Razer has done a lot of great stuff for us, and we fully integrate with Razer peripherals for their chroma effects and things like that. So we have some costumes and skins in the game you can wear that have LEDs galore, and they actually will sync up to your Razer peripherals. And AMD also would like to thank them. They've been a great partner for a number of years, including through many of my games, and they've provided a lot of the development hardware we use today. So shout out to those two really good companies. Glad to have them aboard. But yeah, we are here to talk about. I think we're the format that we talked about before stream, Tim. I think I told you that I just want to do this as kind of like a one-on-one podcast with you, where we talk about Kamen America and how that's going, and then we also talk about Em-8er, and we kind of introduce our two communities to each other, because I think there is some crossover. I have a lot of followers on Twitter that are also Kamen America followers, and then after that, we're going to talk about Em-8er, and we're going to go through the sort of the high concepts of Em-8er, and then we're going to conclude with a little bit of a game demo of the sort of like pre-production prototype that we're working on. But first of all, I think we should start with just how well this Kickstarter of yours is doing. So let me bring that up here. And we're looking at a live feed right now, and it's currently at, what is that, Tim? What is that number? I can't say it. It's too big.
According to my screen, it's $88,380.
That is amazing. And is this what you expected the first day?
We don't know what to expect. I have my own means of tracking data and making projections, and so it was actually fairly close to how it would be on the first day. But obviously, that can go any direction. The first day metric is not as important as obviously the last day metric in terms of trying to see how many people are backing or supporting it. We're more focused on the backer number. We want more readers as opposed to the money, simply because if you can keep your readership growing, then you don't really have to worry about the monetary input that comes in. But I will say that based on the number as of midnight last night compared to how it was on Kamen America 4, which launched in September, it was a pretty wide margin. I think we beat our previous record by almost 12K, and we beat it by about 320 something backers. So that's pretty neat. As far as momentum is concerned, that's a very good thing, because it means that right out the gate on the first day, there were definitely an influx of people who were very eager to check it out.
I see the number of backers is at 1,876, and this counter is still updating as I'm staring at the number. Is that so you're saying like 300? That's 300 more than you had first day, the last campaign?
Yes, from last year in September. It was roughly 1440, I think, around there. And when I went to bed last night, it was hovering just north of 1700. So obviously we've gained at least 100 more backers between the time that I went to sleep to the time to where we are now. And obviously, every time you launch a campaign, there's a few factors that go into it. You're not going to have perfect retention, because for some reason or the other, people from your previous book, they might actually find it as a dropping off point, because they decide, well, the saga is over, I need to save some money, so I'll wait till there's an omnibus for the second go around. Or, some people might say, it really isn't for me, I'm just going to get off the carousel right now. So being able to not only replenish the backer number that might have left, but to get new readers, that's very good. And so that's what we look forward to mostly whenever we do these, as far as the pure number that we're interested in.
You sound incredibly analytical and on top of things like a CEO, but you're actually the artist behind Kamen America. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm technically the creator, and then my co-creator is Mark Pellegrini. We share everything 50-50 as far as the breakdown of the any royalties and things like that we might get, as well as the credit. My day job is actually my vocation. I'm an audiologist, so even being an artist is not like what I do all the time. It's not what I was trained to do.
That's so tell me, like, so how did you get into, so first of all, some of our community may not know this, but it's like, what are we talking about? What is Kamen America? Let's back up for a second. Kamen America is a comic book, right? So we're talking about a Kickstarter for a comic book, and these are great numbers for comics. I don't know where it sits in the spectrum, but maybe you could tell us a little bit about how you started off in comics. What was your first comic? Were you a professional before this, or did you just draw on the side and get into this, or how did it happen?
So no, I'm not technically a professional, and I define professional as someone who does it for a living. Like, that's their vocation. That's what they do full time. The way it worked was I always drew as a hobby, but I was always discouraged from pursuing the arts. I joke about it because it's like a typical like Asian family thing. I've noticed that there's some people that I know who are artists who have the same background. For example, like Frank Cho, Jim Lee, who's the other one? He's a friend of mine. Oh, Tom Wen. We were all kind of laughing about it because all of us kind of have similar backstories where it's like, well, you're not going to be an artist. You're going to be a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer or something. So my background is I got my audiology degree, my doctorate, in 2011. And I just said, if I get that doctorate degree, I'm going to focus on some other things. I just have it as to sort of have it so that I can have something to fall back on professionally. But I do like my job. So I became a university professor and I was teaching. But in order to pay my my student debts and to obviously pay my bills and stuff like that, I found out that doing t-shirt designs was actually pretty lucrative. A lot of artists don't even think about merchandising as far as like an artistic career. So I was able to get roped around into working with We Love Fine, who was a license holder for various properties. And my first gig, I think, was working on Marvel and Transformers. They needed someone who could work in their merchandising department who could draw robots. And so that was like one of my first tasks, was trying to kind of revitalize that license for them as far as merchandise was concerned, because it had kind of gone stagnant. So I did that for about a decade, and I did that with Mark, because Mark is the idea guy and I'm just the artist. So I would ask him like, hey, they're wanting this as far as a trend is concerned. What can we do? And then he would give me the input and then I would draw it. So I did that, and then the time came where I guess someone had asked me like, if you could do something more than just merchandising art, what would you do? And I said, I want to do comic book covers. So I partner up with a store in San Antonio, Heroes and Fantasies. I think they're the largest comic store in Texas. And my first comic cover was for IDW. It was Back to the Future #1. And then I did that for about 4 years before the opportunity came to make political parody comics through Antarctic Press. They're also based out of San Antonio. We have a lot of mutual friends there. And they said, Tim, you have to work on a comic. And I said, I really don't have a desire to, because I'm pretty good at single illustrations, but not sequentials. And they said, if you do something that's a political parody, we're going to publish it just because like we like your art. And so I said, okay. Now at the time, it was like post 2016, everything was very contentious in the country. And there were a lot of, there was a kind of a high demand for like Trump comics. Just because like
Oh
everyone
my!
was,
You were right in the middle of that, weren't you?
I was, yeah, because a lot of artists in the mainstream were too scared. They were too scared of getting blacklisted. They didn't want the attention. They didn't want to be bullied or anything like that. Whereas Mark and I were like, well, you know, we work for a university, but we live in the South. Everyone's pretty even keeled as far as attitudes are concerned. They kind of know when you're joking and when you can kind of treat things lightly. So we started doing these parody books for Antarctic Press, and they sold like gangbusters. They were very well. The first issue that we did was My Hero Magademia. It's a parody. It's a spoof. And I mean, if you can find the first printing of that on eBay, or if you own one, I mean, I've seen it sell from $200 to like $500 for the first edition.
My
So
Hero Magademia.
yes,
So
So
that's funny.
yeah, so that was the first book that we worked on. We went into 9 printings with that one. And then after that, it was kind of like a bug that we had been bitten by. And I said, you know, it's kind of fun. You want to work on some other stuff too. So obviously, time's gone by. That was 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago. And we just never looked back after that. We just kept on working on stuff.
So this is your 5th volume. So you started and your 5th like crowdfunding. So why did you decide to go crowdfunding with this instead of like traditional comic publication?
A couple of reasons why. So Antarctic Press has been very kind to us, but they obviously have to take their cut after the publication is concerned. They have to send it to the stores, and then the stores obviously they're beholden to Diamond for their orders, and then Antarctic Press has to, obviously they're the ones taking the risk, so they cover the overhead and they have to subtract that. So at the end of the day, even if you're able to sell like 6,000, 7,000 books in stores, the payout to the artists is really not that high. And so we still give Antarctic Press our residuals as far as like, well, you know, after we are done with the crowdfunding, we give them a version of our books to print, to put into retail stores. But we just realized that we could do a better job of accruing capital and then spending it wisely if we just went fully independent. And currently, the best method of doing that is through crowdfunding. That way, the only 2 people who really have to worry about getting paid are myself and Mark. And everything else is just the overhead of producing the book, the tchotchkes, things of that nature. So I feel like we were able to have our cake and eat it too, because typically about 3 to 4 months after our campaigns, Antarctic Press will reach out to us, and they're going to want the copy of the book or a version of it to put in stores. And then so we get to double dip. Whereas it's really hard to do it in the inverse manner where it's already in stores and then you go to crowdfunding, because a lot of people in the crowdfunding sphere will be like, well, I'm not going to back this because I already have a version of it that I saw at my local store.
And you've done fantastically well. I mean, the comic is sitting at some of the some of the highest crowdfunded indie comics out there. And what is, oh, I'm sorry, is that right? Do I have that ballpark right?
I think in terms of overall sales, I think it's considered to be like it's a success for people who don't have a lot of support. We almost have no major YouTube presence. It's not very often that you'll hear about us talked about on YouTube channels. I think our biggest person who talks about us is occasionally just some guy. He reads all of our books, but he doesn't necessarily review all of them, and we don't ask him to. So he's not beholden to us, and we don't want to put pressure on him by asking him to review them. But just out of the blue, he'll just pop a review out for a volume that he just finished. I think he's a busy guy, so sometimes it's months after the campaign is over that he'll actually review the book. And so that's probably the strongest word of mouth that we get. But the reason why we like it is because he will review the book after it's already been done. And so people then get interested because they're like, oh my gosh, I missed that one. Like, why did I miss that book? And then they make sure to back it the next time so that they don't miss out on it. And I think that I feel better about it because it's an honest commentary on our work. There's a lot of people in the independent sphere who want the initial promotion. They want everything front loaded where it's like, well, they might think the book is crap, but I don't care. I want all those numbers to come in so that I can, boost my sales. And my mentality is, yeah, but that's, in my opinion, that's short-sighted because you might get the rallying cry, but then what if people read the book and it's not good? You're not going to get a lot of those people coming back the second time. I would rather have the honest opinion from someone who's actually read a finished product. I think that speaks more strongly about the work. So 99% of our audience tends to be word of mouth, grassroots, just people that we meet on Instagram or Twitter who share with their friends and things like that. So in that respect, I think it's done extremely well compared to some of the other big crowdfunders. I mean, obviously, I don't think we can compete with like Brian Pulido with Lady Death, even though I think we're approaching his backer number as far as our growth is concerned. And then there's some other guys out there, like, for example, Doug TenNapel with Earthworm Jim and Bigfoot Bill.
Right.
I think that to us is the gold standard as far as maybe within 5 years, we hope to get there.
I know Doug TenNapel from years back because he came in, we met at the Blizzard offices, and I was such an Earthworm Jim fan, and we talked at length about it then. And we've kept in touch in it. And I backed one of his things, and it came in like a gorgeous print box and everything else. And then when I got your box, because I backed the Kamen America and Black Ops crossover, I was also struck with how beautiful the packaging was, and the box is collectible, the shipping box of all things, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, we actually borrowed the idea from him. I got that. So we do everything from a very business mindset because a lot of art is subjective. Your mileage will vary in terms of whether you or not you like the writing or the art, but I feel like there are things that you can control, and those come on the business side. So what we did was my friend, he runs Iconic Comics, that's the imprint out of Texas. So when that book came in, the Earthworm Jim box, we had a team meeting, and I said, we're going to sit here with notes, and I just want you to open the box, and I just want you to write down just first impressions. And we compared, and that's what we did. We did it for about 45 minutes. We just all got box cutters. We just opened the boxes, and then it was like, okay, like it's the presentation of the outside is already stellar, but then you open the box and then boom, you're hit with something else inside, because he didn't just print in the front, he printed on the inside of the box too.
Right.
And then we looked at how the packaging was done, how it was like the snuggest, tightest fit possible to protect the book. And so we just started looking at all of this stuff. Now we thought to ourselves, my friend, he goes, well, this is doable. We can do it. How much money did he make on his campaign? And I was like, really high figures, like 6-figure, like a crazy amount of money. And we thought, well, we don't have quite the capital to do that, but what can we do to capture a lot of the same spirit of it? So a lot of credit and shout out to Doug TenNapel because we have no reservations about crediting him for a lot of the ideas that we took, and hopefully one day we can have a packaging and presentation service as stellar as his.
Oh, and he's quite eager to share too. I've talked to him about, hey, who's your printer? Because I was interested in doing a print run of some of our stuff, and he was very willing to share that information. A great guy, and of course, a great franchise too. Let's talk about your main character here. We have her up here on the screen, and I'll just put up Carly here. And what's the background of the comic? What's the story about?
So it's about basically it's a girl next door story at the heart of it. There's a lot of interpersonal drama, but it involves Charlotte Vanders, also goes by the name Carly, and she's a USO dancer, an entertainer, and she was making costumes for USO tours and stuff. And on one of these tours, she has a faithful encounter with cosmic debris, and it turns her into a human battery. So it gives her the ability to harness and weaponize her bioelectricity. So she becomes this kind of supercharged person with the spirit of self-determination, and she's persuaded to become a mass fighter for justice. So she has a lot of nicknames and monikers like the fighting fashionista, the patriotic paladin, but most of our readers know her as Kamen America.
I love all the guest artists you have here. I'm not sure who this is. Who's the artist who did this one? I don't know if you can see the Twitch stream that I have up right now.
Well, I'm not looking at the Twitch stream.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you may want to turn that on, because if I start showing Ember stuff later, we're gonna start losing you, because you won't be able to see anything that I'm trying to show you.
I was gonna fake it till I make it, because I don't even have Twitch, so that's a kind of a hurdle right there.
All the mods can help you out. They'll send you a link to our Twitch channel, and you can fire that up. You might get double audio, so you'd probably just mute Twitch while we're doing it for real time. But yeah, I see that you have a lot of guest artists. What was the sort of like inspiration for going to all these guest artists and having them do images of your OC?
So part of it is the marketing portion. What's difficult during campaigns is kind of this slog where there's not much going on, because I'm working on the next book while at the same time having to kind of keep up with the campaign and things like that. So what we did was we took some of our capital and we set aside a budget for commissions. So that way we could ask artists to create things so that the character of Kamen America was always present. Almost like every day there's a new piece of art that's coming out and people are getting excited about. And so we made sure to kind of look at our talent pool, and over 2 years of doing it, we have settled on some of our favorites. They're people who are very quick, very reliable, and very good. And so that way they're constantly producing stuff for us. And that way people are like, oh my gosh, who's this character? Like, this is beautiful. And some of these people have bases of fandom that are greater than anything that we could muster. And that's very helpful, especially like in the Japanese market, which I think is our second biggest one besides here in America.
That surprised me when you said you had all these Japanese fans, and then I looked in, and it was evident that you did, because I actually plug into a lot of Japanese Twitter, and then I'll see the Kamen America images crop up every now and then. That I grew up in Asia, right? So I'm like half Chinese, half German American, but I spent my whole childhood in Asia, and watching anime on TV, watching Godzilla in theaters, all that stuff. And one thing that fascinated me was the whole art style that they have. It was so different from the Western stuff that my friends were looking at. And I was curious. It's like manga has definitely crossed over here to the US in a big way. And your style is somewhere in between. Like, it's manga-esque, right? But you have your own spin on it. And I'm surprised that connects with the manga community in the same way that, it's kind of been flowing over here. And I wondered if you had any sort of thoughts on that, or why that sort of happens.
I kind of do, but I don't want to get into a huge conversation about it, but it boils down to a theory that Mark and I have after noticing kind of the change in how anime has gone in the last few years. I know this is kind of blasphemy, but during the 90s, I would watch anime on like Cartoon Network and Toonami and Adult Swim, and honestly, I didn't like any of it. I thought the art was beautiful, but I thought the storytelling was extremely weak. I took a class on Japanese sociology, and our instructor, she actually had written several books about anime and manga, and she said, well, one thing that the Japanese, I don't want to say are bad at, but something that's kind of like a hallmark of their storytelling is they're fine with ambiguity. So they don't mind if you don't understand the ending. It's like, it's almost supposed to be like a philosophical thing where it's like, oh, you weren't meant to understand it. Like, it's whatever you want it to be. And there's some classic examples of that. Like, for example, Like at the end of Cowboy Bebop, it's
Yep.
like, oh, did Spike die? Did he not die? Is it a hallucination? Is it real? Did he survive? Whatever. And then don't even get me started like Neon Genesis Evangelion. It's a whole other topic. But I don't like that because me personally, I grew up with Western storytelling, so it's like I like book-ended concepts. I like things where it's like, no, this was the intent of the author. You're a storyteller. I want a conclusion to the story. So I fast forward to now. I've always been resistant to watching anime because it's like, well, I didn't really have that great of an experience of it in the 90s and in the 2000s. But a friend of mine said, no, you really need to watch some of this stuff. It's really good. There's a reason why kids don't even watch a lot of cartoons anymore. They just watch anime and read manga. So I think he started me on like One Punch Man and Kill la Kill. And I was hooked. I was like, holy cow, like, this is stuff that I thought was entertaining. It's not just amusing, but it actually has like a book-ended ending where you kind of know where all the characters are at the end. And then from there, talking to Mark about it, because Mark actually speaks Japanese. He took several classes in it and actually like went to Japan. He told me this concept, and it was specifically with Studio Trigger. He said, just as like we refer to people here who like anime as like weeaboos, there's a term that they also use colloquially called westaboos. It's Japanese people who are enamored or have a proclivity for American aesthetic and American storytelling. And he said that you can see some of that in Studio Trigger because whenever they animate things like Little Witch Academia, for example, they put references to American stuff in there. Like, I think it's I don't know which episode it is of Little Witch Academia, but you can even see like Gravity Falls characters in the crowd because they like Gravity Falls, which is
I never even noticed that.
Yeah, and so they're there. And then in Kill la Kill, the main student council, when they transform, all of their derivative costumes are based on Marvel characters. Like Guri, or is that his name, Guri or Yuri? The big guy, he turns into like Apocalypse. And then his second form is like Juggernaut. And then like the tech guy with the glasses, his costume is based on Spider-Man. So my theory is that if you look at Japanese culture and look at their history, they've always been good at reverse engineering things. They were one of the quickest countries who missed the Industrial Revolution, but when it came to their country, they were one of the fastest ones to take it, reverse engineer it, and almost make it better than how it was before. I feel like they do the same thing with the arts. What they did was they took some of the things that we like over here, like, for example, superheroes or comedy, and they adapted it pretty quickly, which is why, like, right now, My Hero Academia is selling like gangbusters. Like, DC and Marvel are so busy constantly rebooting their series because they've kind of forgotten how to write the Avengers and the X-Men. It's all gimmicks and it's all like, basically going back to square one. Whereas My Hero Academia tells a fairly linear storyline, and that's what's getting younger people to read it and watch it. And so I watched, I think I'm pretty caught up with My Hero Academia, and I watch it as like a studying thing. It's not one of my favorite anime out there, but I can learn a thing or two. And I just thought to myself, I was like, they're doing all the things that we used to do, but they're just committing to it. And that's what makes it good, is that there's just an honesty to it. I was watching an episode a few months ago, and there's a character to introduce, and he basically has like living onomatopoeia. So he can say something like blam, and it'll actually produce the word balloon blam, like the text effect. But it's like it's a living structure. Like the sound effect will actually follow the characters around and kind of do what it needs to, like crash on top of them or something. And I just thought that doesn't make any sense scientifically, but they don't care because it's like this is superheroes. I mean, you're looking at very fantastical, illogical elements that the characters need to use abilities wise in order to win at the end. So there is that degree of influence in our work too, because it's like, well, I didn't watch anime growing up as far as like my devotion to it, but I like Joe Mad. He's actually my favorite artist of all time. I think I own all his works just because I want to study his art. And he was really one of the first American artists to successfully blend East and West together into kind of a new thing. Now, I'm nowhere near as good as he is, like not even by a long shot, but a lot of that spirit is in a lot of what I do. There are times when I'll flip back and forth between an East and West style to just accomplish whatever I need to.
Yeah, there's definitely a Western sensibility, I think, to the storyline, and then you've got the blend of the art. and why not, right? Like early anime and manga is the big eye thing is supposed to have been
Disney.
inspired by Disney, right?
Correct.
So
Yeah.
so it kind of like it borrows from each other, and that's something that is fascinating to me is when two cultures blend together that way, and that's also kind of a hot topic these days too. It's like, when is that appropriate, when is that not appropriate? And I'm just like, hey, as being a mix myself, the more sharing the better is my philosophy.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's a lot that you can glean from each other. Like it's ironic. Like what you mentioned is kind of a neat turn of events. Disney, because their characters, the way they animated them, they kind of had bigger than normal eyes as far as proportions are concerned. They inspired the Japanese. The Japanese create their own kind of aesthetic based on that, and then we kind of adapt it again. So there's this really good back and forth flow of ideas from one culture to the other. So it's like, if you can make your product better, then I don't see a problem with it. Now, some friends of mine pointed this out, but they said, what was annoying was in the 90s, especially towards the tail end, the eyes were getting bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where they pretty much took up like half the face. Now I've noticed that I think aesthetically the Japanese have actually turned it down. I do watch a lot of anime now, and I'm like, yeah, they're just not as big as they used to be.
Yep, I think there's definitely the dish saucer stage of anime that I remember, and I don't know. I like a big. I like a big. I'll say that. Speaking of proportions, I've got an image up right now. I don't
Okay.
know. Are you on Twitch yet?
I have to create an account, which is what I'm doing covertly right now.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll vamp while you do that.
Yeah, that's fine.
So, one thing that you arrived at, I think, at the right place at the right time. There was a sort of like movement to get crowdfunded comics going, and it sounds like everyone was waiting for something different to happen in the comic industry. Everyone was waiting for stories that focused on entertainment, and this is a theme that I've heard from many indie creators who sort of left the big publishing arena and went indie. I have a good friend, Nick Cole and Jason Onspach, who are writers. They write novels, and they used to work for big publishers. And the big publishers would want more and more say in what they were writing, and they didn't, uh, they didn't have the same values anymore, and so they decided to go independent, and they became very successful doing that. And now they have their own publishing arm. They're one of the top sellers on Audible as well as Kindle books, and I think that that's something that's important today, because a lot of what's happening is that I see is there's a mass production happening. Like, people talk about this in music, that music now is controlled by corporations, and corporations really just you know pump out stuff according to a formula and whatever serves the algorithm, and you lose a lot of that creativity, and there's some subject matters that you just can't touch anymore, right? And for your case and mine, I think that it's just having an attractive female in your comic as a fantasy, right? Like, is a problem for some people, and it's like, well, yeah, okay, well, these are escapism, and there's male power fantasies, and there's female power fantasies too. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, and why you're not afraid to go that direction.
It does tie into kind of what we were talking about before with the political satire stuff. So the reason we did Kamen America was I had no aspirations to do a female character at all, but we had heard those complaints for the longest time, where it's like, why does this character have a flat chest? Why do they look like a man? Why do they have a square jaw? Why are their hips not proportioned the way a woman should be? And it'd be one thing if it were like an isolated incident, but it just seemed to be like a corporatized and universal thing of the comics culture, where it's like, no, suddenly this is anathema to what we want to do. So we're going to make sure that we can, try to avoid that as much as possible. And the arts in general is supposed to be rather daring. It's just this kind of streak of individuality. You're not going to tell me what to do, that type of thing. Growing up in the 80s, and I'm sure even before then, comic books, I mean, you pretty much had your choice of what you wanted to read because there was so much variety out there. So we were hearing all of these complaints, And for one of our comics, it was actually the second Walmart book, the second book in the My Hero Macadamia story. We introduced a parody character named Warhen. And Warhen is supposed to be a derivative of another Marvel character. And I posted the art online, and I said, "Oh, look, here's another character we're introducing." And it was my most shared and talked about tweet of that year. And so it kind of, I was like, "What in the world? Like, this is crazy." And so I told Mark, I said, "You know what? I know we weren't planning on doing this, but what do you think about having a spin-off? Like, why don't we take the Warhen character and do something with her?" And he goes, "Well, we could, but the problem is that it's very clearly a derivative and a parody of another character. We have to make her own." So that's actually how we ended up with Kamen America. And all we decided to do is we said, okay, we've been watching a lot of this anime. A lot of it does feature an ensemble cast of mostly women, even though you do have like a few solo titles that are female centric. So we did our homework. We started watching them, and we said, what is it about this that makes it different than the way people do it in the West? And one thing I noticed was in the West, they put a lot of emphasis on the fact that it's, I'm a woman, like, look at me, I can do this. Whereas you look at shows like Sailor Moon, for example, and it's like you could be a guy and you could watch it. It's no problem because, yes, there is a feminine aspect that is very distinct. Like the characters basically have to be women for a lot of the stuff to work out the way it does. There's that charm and there's that beauty that's attached to those characters. The focus on it, though, has to be the characterization of them alone. You can't just focus on who they are as a woman, and you can't just focus on a lot of the politicized aspects of femininity. And so we just said, okay, let's try it and see what we can do. So that's basically how that came about. And again, we've kind of played in this park of we have no competition. I think you have people in like the big two, and a lot of times their women are so indistinguishable from each other because it's all like, oh yes, queen slay, like, you know, we're strong, we're strong independent woman. That's a marketing thing I tell people not to do. I always say you never blend in with your market. I'm not a businessman by nature, even though I taught a business course for 6 years on private practice. But one of the things that we learned was never blend in with the market. When people are doing something, you avoid it as much as possible. And I say that from the perspective of lingo. If people are always saying that their character is strong independent woman, strong independent woman, strong independent woman, avoid that. You have a thesaurus. Look up other words: resilient, tough, brave, courageous.
There are other words.
There are other words, but they end up in this mindset where they're like, well, everyone does it. That's how you sell. I said, yeah, you sell to dummies who fall for that stuff, but you have to assume your audience isn't dumb. Give them some credit. Assume they're smart. Assume they know that there's another word for strong, tough, brave, courageous, whatever it might be. It's also why you're getting me off tangent here, but it's also why I tell people not to market as X meets Y. So
right.
I had some comic creators, they got really mad at me when I said this 2 weeks ago. I said, look,
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that on Twitter.
Holy cow, they were mad. And I was like, I'm not calling you, I didn't call anyone out specifically. There's just a general rule of thumb. If you're telling me my comic is like Ghost Rider meets Earthworm Jim, I'm like, well, it better be better than both of those, because if not, I'm gonna be really mad when I get it. And I said, so you will have people who won't back you because of that, but why take that risk when you can come up with a pitch that you're confident in that will get you more people and run no risk of losing them?
So, one of my devs just interjected, more importantly, what are you the Dark Souls of?
Yeah, or it's like oh, what is this like? Gundam meets, and it's like, I'm not filling in that blank. Like, it's not, I don't want to compare myself to anything else. You want that kind of, the independent spirit is in the word independent. You're trying to say that there's nothing else like you out there. So don't compare yourself to the mainstream. That doesn't really make any sense. Even us, I mean, we admit that we had our roots in parody and satire, but when people are like, so is it like this character? Is it like Stargirl? It's like, I'm not gonna compare myself to that because it has nothing to do with it.
I think we discovered a similar thing. Like there's an underserved market out there because, corporate America is good at rounding off all the sharp edges on products to try to get it into as many hands as possible, making it family friendly. I call this the Vegas effect, right? Vegas used to be a place where Frank Sinatra and gangsters hung out, right? And it was hardcore. And that, and it made money. People were rich, but to get even bigger, to get mass market, they started rounding off the corners and they made it family friendly, mass market, all this stuff. And you're able to achieve a much higher scale of things, but you leave behind an audience, right? And
Right.
and when I talked to Nick about books too, he's like, yeah, current sci-fi and books leave behind an audience. Usually the people who started off in that niche and before it got big in the first place, and they're underserved. And so, he's happy to take that. He says, if they're leaving money on that table, I'll take it. Right. And so, I hear you with that. And that's why we ended up saying, and I was so frustrated with the censorship in games. I'm the naval guy. There's a meme because PAX banned the display of aggressive naval at their convention centers in cosplay. And I was like, what's an aggressive naval? And then it started this whole meme on Twitter. And I said, send me examples. So people would send me everything from warships to, oranges with various issues, all the way to 2D and 3D women with bare midriffs. And I retweeted everything, and I tried to answer the question of what an aggressive naval was. And I realized that you can't get aggressive naval anymore, let alone aggressive anything else, aggressive cleavage, right? Things like this. And so I wanted to I was really frustrated with that. And I was also frustrated with Blizzard characters getting censored too. We did bare midriffs and WoW because Britney Spears was championing that, and she was brave and empowering. Oh, she's showing her midriff, right? And now it's like, oh, you can't do that. And so we started to go, towards what we call the waifu route, right? Em-8er is really about waifu and kaiju and mecha, and we'll get into that later. But when we started doing the waifu stuff, there was a huge response. I mean, we probably it was responsible for the most explosive growth in our user base when we did that. And we're not all about that. Like I constantly emphasize, it's like, hey, that's just one aspect of it. But we kind of stumbled upon some of the same artists that did that. So I'm actually putting up some images here. Cute Sexy Robot, CSR, is a not safe for work artist with an amazing Twitter following. And I think we both had work done by them. And that's when I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Maybe there's crossover potential here. And I've got an image up now of Carly. This is Carly, right? Do I have that right? Or do I have the wrong character?
It is Penelope, but they both have red hair. So yeah.
That's what it is. Because Carly's hair color changes when she activates her powers, right?
That's correct. She's a redhead naturally, but then she changes into a blonde.
All right. And so these are so there's Carly as Kamen America in blonde, and it's a CSR painting, and that was on the back of issue 1. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And that you can't get any more waifu than CSR, right? I think that's like for me that's like the penultimate of like a bodaciousness out there. And that was a fantastic partnership for us, and it really just showed me how many people wanted to return to where that was okay. Even if it's not the focus, right? If it's just like, well, why do we have put everyone in pantsuits? Like they're talking about that Disney's going to remake Minnie Mouse and get rid of her dress and put her in a pantsuit now. So
yeah, I heard about that this morning, and I think right now, so the way Disney tends to work is they never really commit wholeheartedly to something. They always put feelers out there first. So when I heard about that this morning, I think they're doing it in one of the smaller theme parks first. Like I think Disneyland Paris, and then maybe see how that goes before they decide to make changes there on a larger scale. But that's par for the course for them as far as that's concerned. They're very corporatized right now. Everything has to be very sanitary, and I think that ultimately, if they continue that trajectory, it just stifles their creativity, because you have so many constraints in terms of trying to cater to honestly a very, very small minority of a population that really gives a crap. Most people don't. Most people that I encounter, they they pretty much grew up with the things that like a small minority might think is offensive, but or most normal people do not at all. But yeah, going back to CSR, here's where we kind of tie in. Was I had gotten these 2 pieces from him, and I said, "Hey, can I get you for a third?" He's like, "No, I signed on with this group to do like concept art for the games and stuff." And I was like, "Oh, dang it, really?" And he said, "Yeah, if I get some time, I'll circle back to you." But he never did. And then lo and behold,
no.
yeah, it was because he was working on Ember. And I thought, oh, okay. But you're right, because you kind of find that there's one reason why we don't hire a lot of American artists. We used to, but there were a couple times, and I always play it professional. I don't disclose names, but it's happened at least 5 or 6 times where I've talked to people and I said, we pay on time. We always pay early. So typically we'll pay like half or 2/3 up front and then 1/3 at completion. Or for some artists that we trust, we just pay them completely ahead of time, and then we assume and we know that they're going to get it to us by deadline. But we've had at least 6 artists during the last 2 years who are like, "Hey, are you the person who did this? Like, is this you?" And I say, "Yeah." And it's like, "I don't want to work with you. Like, you're going to sabotage my chances of getting work." And I'm like,
No.
that's fine. And I don't make us think about it. I completely understand. Everyone has to make the business decisions. But looking at like the artists in South America and in Asia, primarily like South Korea and in Japan, they don't care. Like, it's not a thing for them. And I've broached the subject. Like I said, hey, I just want you to know in full disclosure that we worked on political parody a few years ago, and apparently that's like a hot thing in America right now. Like, people get really, really they clutch their pearls at any mention of politics, no matter what it is. And I just want you to know that, because I don't want any of this backfiring on you. And they just basically say, well, F that. Like, I don't care. You paid me. I'm doing the work. I agree to it. And in some cases, they're like, no, I think that's great. I think that's good what you do. I'm glad that you have your own opinions, and that's it. And that's why right now I don't think we hire a single artist in America. I think they're all from other countries, and I think that's ironic because they're drawing an American character. But what can you do? Like, there's risks I can't take. I mean, for some of these people, I think in 2 instances, I didn't even get my money back. They were just like, "No, I'm going to take your money, and I'm not going to work on your thing." Like, okay.
Wow.
I'm just not going to hire you anymore.
So you're saying that American comic artists can get blacklisted, basically?
Or they're scared of it. And I think it's because some of them, they do want to work in the mainstream. They want to work for these companies. And sometimes they don't even hold the same politics as they do, which I still think is admirable. It's like, well, no, you have to pay your bills somehow. And if you can ignore the politics and just focus on the art and your job, I think there's a certain admiration to that. But it's like they don't want to be ostracized by their peers. And they don't want to be said, well, are you hanging out with a bigot? And you're like, I don't want to be in that position to answer it. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I think that we're grown adults. I think there's ways to answer it. I mean, I get fielded those questions all the time where it's like, do you hang out with that? I'm just going to pick you, for example. They'll say, you're going to hang out with Grums? Like, he's a bigot. And I'll say, well, why don't you take that up with him? Like, why are you taking it up with me? Like,
I'm a Chinese bigot. Yes.
called it all the time. I got called it yesterday, and I just thought, I don't like playing that card, even though it's funny sometimes. So I do it in jest, but I'm like, guys, come on, like, think with 2 brain cells here. Why don't you give me the benefit of the doubt that I'm at least articulate enough to espouse my own position? Like, you don't have to label me anything. I mean, like, I try not to label certain people things consciously, because I'm like, I'm not here to hurt feelings or anything like that. Definitely have my own opinions, but I'm also here. I am willing to get along with everyone as long as that mutual respect is extended to us. But like you said, I think in the arts, very, very tricky. I think what's good about gaming is that a lot of people who are into games, they have a very pragmatic view of it. And I think it's because of the rewarding nature of games. Games reward you for overcoming obstacles. And so you want a little bit of challenge in order to get where you are. And so I think that mindset in the minds of players makes it so that you do avoid a lot of the pitfalls that are right now kind of unavoidable in comics. Because in comics, it's basically the reader is at the control of the storyteller. Whereas I think in games, there's definitely a vote with your wallet mentality, where if you do pull stunts like that, you're a lot less likely to get people like buying your next game that comes out because they've already been fooled once.
Gamers really don't care. And in fact, I've seen if a indie dev doesn't cave to pressure and actually stands up for what they believe in and says, no, this is fine, we're not hurting anyone, this is entertainment, that actually boosted their sales. Right. I've actually seen the opposite. But yeah, so let's move on, because I know we have something to show everybody, right? We're doing our crossover event. This is a Em-8er Kamen America crossover event. I've been in touch with Mark longer than I have with you. He introduced me to you on Twitter, and he was interested in doing something, and I was interested in doing it. But it was actually a fan or two that approached me and said, "Have you thought about doing anything with Kamen America?" And I said, you know what? We have thought about it. And I've mentioned it to Mark like once, maybe. Funny you should say that. And I think people recognize it's not just the waifu. What they recognize is that we're willing to sort of buck the trend, fill the niches that have been left behind, and to do it in an independent way that isn't going to be under the heel of like a giant publisher or anything like that, right? Not that we don't mind working with giant publishers, but it's got to be, at least for us, it's got to be on our terms, right? So, we've been kicking this idea around since, I don't know, November? Is it even earlier?
It was earlier than that. And what happened was, I think you had approached me in the middle of a campaign, and then we had already gotten everything assembled for our fourth one. So we didn't have any wiggle room in there. So I think it was in probably October where I said, hey, just to let you know, we're launching in January. So all that stuff we talked about, this is the time to do it, because we basically have like a landing strip where we can fit in something that would be really cool. And I think that's where we got the ball rolling.
Yeah. And it just seemed like a really great idea. Because one thing I've been talking about is with you and Nick is like, hey, indies helping each other, right? Like we formed this interconnected mesh that is able to be on a much stronger footing than if we were standing on our own otherwise. And we get to cross over our audiences. I think there's a lot of potential crossover here. And so I was really happy to do something with you guys. And so the first thing we decided to produce was taking our Em-8er character and then creating a statuette from it that we were like, well, what do we do with this figure? It's like, well, why don't we include it in your tiers for this Kickstarter so that anyone who wants it can download this file and print it. And that's what we're going to show right here. I'm going to cue up the statue, and while the statue's playing, we could talk over it, and we could talk a little bit about how this was produced. Sure. All right, is everybody ready to see it? You guys have seen some of the still renders leaked, but this is a little movie that we're going to show now. I'm watching chat. You guys ready? All right, everybody ready? Here we go. Let me turn this off first. And this is it. This is the full render. And this is a collaborative effort with a bunch of artists on our team. Toshi led the work on the main character and the base. And I have another very talented 3D artist who has done some figurine work before, work on the detail. And what we tried to do with this is, and you gave us so much creative freedom, which was awesome. I was like really worried. I was like, we're kind of pushing it here, because I was sort of giving direction to say, hey, if this were to be the movie version of the Kamen America suit, what would it look like? You know how they always have the comic faithful version, and then there's they add like advanced materials or some additional doodads.
Performance fabric, piping on it, a lot of like metallic elements, and a lot of fancy plastics and whatnot.
Yeah, so I was really excited to do this, and then you were really positive as we were showing you the drafts, which was really encouraging. And then we sort of took our kaiju head as a base. This is one of the smaller kaiju in our game. Actually, the head's supposed to be a lot bigger, but we downsized it because we wanted the primary focus to be on Carly. And so we, just for the folks out there, the Em-8er fans are being, that kaiju head is way too small. It's like, well, we scaled it down for the sake. We took artistic license with it, as well as the costume. And How are your fans responding to the costume so far? I'm kind of worried about that too.
Oh, they love it. They haven't said anything bad about it, but it's like you said, it's basically like a movie version of it. And what I liked about it is in the initial sculpts you were showing me, it was faithful to the comic version. But I think there was just this huge leap from one picture to the X where you said, well, this is the direction we took it in. And I said, that's even better because I like it when people do that. We actually do that pretty regularly. A lot of the Japanese artists that we hire, they put their own spin on our characters and we just roll with it. The first classic example is we hired Kafun to do a lot of our artwork. And when he was drawing USAGI, we gave him a carrot knife. So in the past, he just had a normal knife. It was the one that TSR actually first painted. But Kafun just said, well, here's a knife where the handle is like a carrot with little pieces of like grass sticking out of it or whatever. And we just said, all right, let's roll with it. From now on, he has that type of knife. And we don't explain it at all. We just say, okay. Same thing with Patriotter. He would draw him wearing gloves. And I think it's because he misunderstood the original design, didn't realize it was actually like the coloration of his paws. But we said, no, let's just give him like these Mario Brothers gloves. Why not? And so when I saw this version, like you and I had been talking about it, and I said, at some point, I think we want to do a derivative of this design because it's so good. I mean, it's you can see it and you know who the character is, but it's just different enough so that she fits into the aesthetics of the world of Em-8er, which I think is fantastic. I love it when artists do that.
You're melting our artists right now. They're like, oh my gosh, really? You're gonna do a variant?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it looks so good. I mean, honestly, I can't think of any more real world example. There is an artist that we hire out of India named Shikari, and he does really lifelike renders. And I think that's the closest that we've seen because I have the full size render on my computer. And so I can zoom in and see like every single like inch of fabric on it and kind of see the different textures that he put on it. So a fantastic job to your developers who helped with this.
Oh, thank you. They're here in chat right now listening, so you know who you are, Toshi, and other artists who shall be unnamed, who has worked on some larger properties for figurines. So we're getting this ready. One thing for those of you who are backing Kamen America, this file is just absolutely free. We're not getting anything for it. It's just included with the tiers. It is just, our homage to Kamen America, and it's designed for 3D printing. So you'll receive a file. There'll be a way that you download it at the end of the campaign by coming onto the Em-8er website and redeeming it. And it will be sort of like a kit. There's some assembly required. Like Toshi has to take it and do compartmentalize it so it prints, because this is a 1/6 scale figure. It's designed for resin printers to be printed at detail. So we put in a lot of detail, and there is some assembly required, but it's really not too bad. It's sort of like insert tab A into slot B type of stuff, and you should have a complete figure. And if you don't have a 3D printer, one thing that comes up all the time is you can send this stuff out. You can send it out to Shapeways and other companies, and they will do a good job printing all the pieces for you. And I don't know if they do assembly, but you can at least assemble it yourself. This is also optimized for people who don't paint. And the reason I point that out is if you look at our eyes, normally if you have a figure, the eyeballs will just be smooth for printing because they expect you to paint the anime eyes in later. We actually sculpted the eyes into the head here, just like you would on, say, like a Greek sculpture or something like that. So if you just wanted to print it and you don't want to paint it, it should still look good, and she still has an expression on her face because you can see those eyes. Quick tip from Toshi. A neat way to approach painting the eyes on a figure like this is to keep them sculpted, paint them, and then fill because it's a depression in the eyeball. Fill that depression with a clear resin, like a clear glue that dries clear, and you can get that glassy effect on the eyeball. The other thing we're debating is also, including a smooth eye version of the head. So if you just want a smooth eye and you just want to paint the eye on yourself or have someone else do it, then you can go ahead and do that. There's some questions in chat about, are we doing a filament version? Probably not, because we wanted to do a lot of detail on the figurine. And we can't really do that with the lower resolution that a filament 3D does. You could print this in filament 3D if you print it large enough. You're just going to have to scale the parts up and you have a printer with decent resolution. But otherwise, like I said, you can send it out to Shapeways. You don't have to print it yourself. It comes back and you glue the parts together. There's not too many parts, but it should be pretty cool looking on your desktop. And it's got the Kamen America and Em-8er logos at the base.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And I like how you compared it to basically like classical sculpture, because that's what I was thinking when you sent over the files this morning. I thought, I can't put my finger on this, but what does it remind me of? Oh, it reminds me of like a museum piece.
Because we wanted to look good even if you didn't paint it. So
yeah, it looks fantastic. I'm really happy with how it turned out.
So this is included with every tier. I'm going to give you your chance to pitch the tiers here and walk us through, because I don't think everyone, there was some confusion about, how to get the omnibus, how do you like handle international shipping and things like this. So let me go ahead and pull that up here. Get back to the website.
Okay.
And if we look at the website here, you are so close to 1,900 backers. You're like 10 away. Can we get 10 people from chat just to back right now? I'm shameless. Because we got to hit 1,900 folks before this stream ends. All right. So if I go to, there's my pledge. I backed. I backed right away. I was happy with it. Go to campaign, and should I play the movie for folks?
If you want to, yeah. That's we're really happy with how that trailer turned out. We hired 2 animators to do it, one for the end animation and one for the beginning one, and then one of our friends, she's a singer out of Austin named Shilava, and she composed the theme for us too. So we're really happy how it turned out.
All right, let's go play it. Okay.
I have to turn your volume on.
That was awesome. But before we go on, some people want a sound check from us to make sure that our volume levels are equal, Tim. So let's we do a thing where I just say like this is sentence A, and then you say this is sentence B, and I balance the levels out like that, and then I'll watch chat here for the response. Let me pull up Discord. All right, so we're gonna do a test. This is sentence A.
This is sentence A.
Oh, you say this is sentence B, but that's okay.
Okay, sorry.
I'm A, you're B.
Okay.
How's the volume, folks? Let us know in Discord. Pretty close? Okay, good. We just adjusted it. All right. That's sort of like the same joke as like it's louder on Twitch and balanced on Discord. As long as that works out. All right, so let's talk about this. Oh, you got one more since we started the movie. Somebody watched the movie and backed.
Yeah.
So what inspired you to do a sort of anime theme song for Kamen America and the trailer?
Most of it had to do with looking at the way other comic book crowdfunders do their trailers. Most of them are people talking and saying, "Hey, I'm so and so, the creator of this. Like, this is what my book is about." But I'm always of the opinion of show, don't tell. So it's like, well, what's one thing that we could do different that everyone else isn't doing? Well, I know that there's some animators out there who'd probably want to work on something like this. So that's what ended up happening. We ended up reaching out to Carl Cia early last year, and so for like our volume 4 trailer, I mean, it had a lot of animation attached to it, and we have him working on some things right now for our fall volume that's going to be coming out. But that's pretty much what the impetus of it was. We had to do something that kind of set ourselves apart, and we figured that since Kamen America has some anime inspired aesthetics to it, we might as well at least put some of that flavoring in our trailers.
You know, that I hate talking head videos, especially for Kickstarters and things where the devs just, they're on camera, and us devs, we're not the most interesting people to watch. And we sit there and we jaw on about this stuff, and people are just like, just show me what the game's about. Show me some art, show me some gameplay. So I agree with you there. And we actually did an anime theme song test for Em-8er. And I'll share that with you a little later, but I'll play it on stream. Not everyone has heard it. I haven't released it yet, and I'm kind of interested in if people would like that sort of aesthetic, because Em-8er does have, it skews more towards the Japanese American side of things than towards the full on, let's say, Titanfall military aesthetic, right? So, but let's walk through the tiers real quick. Some people are asking, well, this is good timing. There's a question in chat. They're asking about European options and things like this. So what's the deal with shipping and the issues that you have to deal with when shipping overseas when it comes to comics?
So I'll talk about it, and I think I'll have some good news for our audience. We'll announce it here, but you guys keep it a secret. So international shipping is the thing that will destroy you in independent comics. And the reason why is because the item that you're shipping out a lot of times is actually less than the amount that you pay in shipping. The shipping costs that are happening right now worldwide, they're just inescapable. We don't have much flexibility in terms of controlling them. But we also want to make sure that we can offer something that's competitive so that when you're getting it, you can feel like you've justified the price in a certain way. So we opened up international shipping last year to 5 countries. These are the 5 countries that we picked based on digital downloads. We looked at our digital downloads, where they were coming from, and we said, okay, this is where our readership is. So currently it's to the UK, to Germany, Australia, Japan, and Canada. Now, even with Australia, we're having some problems because there's 2 USPS tiers that are not going to Australia. There's an embargo on those 2 specifically. So basically, you have to pay a premium to get them to Australia. One of the big countries that we are getting a lot of demand for is Mexico. Problem with Mexico, they have a high rate of parcel theft. And because you have a high rate of parcel theft, that means that you either have to buy insurance for your books, or you have to make sure that you can front the cost of shipping them back, or you have to have a pretty airtight shipping policy where you can account for it. So these are the countries that so far we've had some success with. Now, the big one that people have been asking about is the European Union, because you have a lot of these European countries where honestly shipping to them is not a problem because they're fairly safe as far as postal security is concerned. But then the issue is time. Whenever you have multiple countries that we have to do these fulfillments for, those are customs forms that you have to fill out for every single one. In the case of the UK, you even have the VAT that was introduced as a result of Brexit. So it's a value added tax that they put onto certain goods. And you do have a separate thing for EU. I think it's the IOSS is what it's called, which is basically how we have to report to them kind of our the incomes that we have, I think, quarterly as they pertain to international shipping. So the secret I'm going to let you guys in on is I have not done it yet, but I'm going to do it within the hour after we get off the stream. We don't have that many international tiers left. And again, the reason we do that is because we don't want to overwhelm the domestic shipping time, because our priority is on domestic shipping. International is kind of what we do afterwards. It's a lot more time consuming, and so that's why we limit it to the 100. But for whatever is left right now in those international tiers, after an hour after this stream is over, we're going to open it to the EU as part of a pilot program. So if you're listening and you're in another country that's in the European Union and you want to try it out, we would love to have you support it, because that will give us some valuable data for us to play with in terms of the success rate of it. And we feel more comfortable doing that than opening up a whole other tier just for European Union countries, because like I said, we're still hesitant about making sure that we can do our job and getting a book to you guys without some of the hassles that we've experienced in like the past 2 years of doing this.
That's fantastic news, because I know that there have been people in our chat that have been looking at the tiers and going, "Oh, they don't ship to my country in Europe." So that is great that you're doing this experiment here, and I hope it works out well.
Yeah, we hope so too. I know that I talked to them late last night about it, just telling them what we wanted to do, and they said, well, it's funny because we've actually been researching that ourselves because of all the people wanting to know when you're going to open that. But like I said, if you're from Mexico, again, you're still going to have to wait a little bit, because we really have to get down to the nitty gritty in terms of making sure that our fulfillment is top notch for what we're doing internationally before we can start opening to other countries. That is the dream, is being able to open it up worldwide completely. But again, we want to err on the side of caution and make sure that we can do it properly before we put you guys in the position of mailing you books that don't show up or have problems when they go to customs. But like I said, for the Em-8er audience, like I said, a lot of you I know are from the European Union, and you're wanting to back it, and we're going to open up some slots for you, like I said, here within an hour after we get off the stream.
That's fantastic. So all of you out there who have been waiting for European shipping options, don't forget, right after this stream is going to be your chance this afternoon. So please hop on that if you're interested. And we'll walk through some of the tiers here. And after that, I think we'll get to the Em-8er stuff, and we'll turn the tables and you can kind of ask me questions.
Sure, absolutely.
All right. So the first tier here is the $5 tier. And what does that get you?
So that gets you the digital download, the PDF of Kamen America Volume 5. We have some people who just read digital. They don't want any physical, and that's fine. So this is a DRM-free download. There is only one stipulation.
That's like pineapple on pizza. I don't understand that.
It's the stipulation is that we do have a download window. After we announce that the downloads have opened, and we give people ample warning, we update everyone and say, hey, just to let you know, this is when we're releasing this. You only have 2 weeks to download it. And then afterwards, we close the window, and then we handle late ones on a case-by-case basis. And we do that to protect ourselves and our customers from piracy. It also comes with the Em-8er statue. So I think that's the part that people really want to hear about too, is you actually get a twofer for this one.
Yeah, even at the $5 level, you get the Em-8er statue, and every single tier here. Because what we wanted to do is we really wanted to cross audiences. We weren't doing this as any sort of money making endeavor. We really just wanted to raise awareness for Em-8er, and because I think we have a lot of the same values, and and we share some of the same artists, so why not? So what's the next tier here? The $10. What does that get you?
$10 is for the actual physical book itself. So you get volume 5 of Kamen America, and you also get the digital copy of it, as well as the Em-8er statue file.
So that's a digital copy and a digital copy of volume 5 and the volume 5. What's the difference between volume 5 graphic novel and digital volume 5?
The digital volume 5 is the PDF, and then the volume 5 graphic novel is the physical version of it where we mail it.
Okay, so that is the physical version. Got it.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of those left, about half of them, but as we know with Kickstarter, you tend to sell half your inventory in the beginning and half at the end. So don't wait until the very end. All right, $15 gets you, what is that?
So that gets you just the digital copies of the omnibus and the digital copy of volume 5. The omnibus is volumes 1 through 4, and then volume 5 is obviously what it is. So this will get you caught up as far as digital only is concerned. And this also comes with the Em-8er 3D print file.
So people have been asking me, and I asked too. I was really frustrated scrolling through this last Cheap Chat going, where do I find the physical omnibus? I know I saw it somewhere when I was browsing it before. If people wanted the physical copy of the omnibus, which is what, issues 1 through 4, right?
Yes.
How do they get that?
So that's a good question. If you go into the main screen, the main window there, and if you scroll down, I can bring up this graph, because I think the confusion is that a lot of people are very quick, and so they just scroll on the right as opposed to going through the main campaign body, because there's a graph that's very handy. There we are, right there.
Did I miss it?
No, you missed it. Go up. Keep on going. Keep on going.
I didn't even see the graph.
Keep on going. Keep on going. That's the graph. You can see pledges and add-ons.
Oh, that's a graph?
Did you miss it? There it is. Yeah, it says pledges and add-ons, and it says choose a pledge on the left, then add a qualifying add-on from the right. And so the pledges, the add-ons, there's only 2. One is a lenticular poster, and then one is the omnibus itself. So what happens with the omnibus is once you pick your pledge, and
this is the omnibus right here that I'm circling with my mouse, right?
There's a little bit of a delay, but yeah, that's the one.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
so
okay, go ahead.
After you choose your pledge level, then all you do is on the next screen, you can add it as an add-on.
Right. So and that's what I discovered too, is that after you select your pledge, you can add either the lenticular poster or the omnibus as an additional sort of like frosting on the cake.
Correct.
All right. And can you explain? There's a couple things here that need explanation. One is this stand-up, this plexiglass dress-up stand-up. How tall is that stand-up? Because I was like, I want life size. Do you have life size?
So, let me see here. So last time I measured it, it's about 5.75, 5.8 inches tall. So it's just under 6 inches in height.
What is this? A stand-up for ants?
Stand up for ants. Yeah, this is actually our most popular tier. We've been offering it since the first campaign. I think the reason people like it is because it combines art and an action figure in essence, because you have a stand, then you can put the paint on it, the standee, and then the good thing is it's collapsible, so that if you need to transport it, all you have to do is just detach it from the base and then put it in like some bubble wrap and then take it with you. What we're doing for this one, though, that's a little bit clever, is it's an optical illusion standee, where there's actually 2 standees instead of 1. You put the costume a few centimeters away from the standee, and at most angles, when you look at it, it looks like that you've gotten like basically a whole new figure.
That is pretty cool. And it includes like how many? What can you do with the costume? Is it in pieces? Is it magnetic? How does that work?
No, it's about, let me take a look here. I got my measuring ruler here. So it's about 0.35 inches away. So there's little holes in the base. So it's just like a thumbnail's length away from the main standee. And so basically the 2 of them are just kind of standing in front of each other. And then so from an angle, when you look at them, it looks like it's one thing. Now, if you look at a certain angle, like from the side, then you can actually see how the illusion is made.
Got it. All right. Now, what about these mouse pads? There's also some confusion there about the masked and unmasked versions.
Yeah. So
you don't get to choose, right? It's like
you get to choose.
Really? So if you back a tier, I thought it was locked to the tier. Like this tier has the masked version and this tier has the unmasked version.
They are, but they offer the exact same things. So you just choose which one you want. Do you want the unmasked version or do you want the masked version?
Got it. All right. So you just so you have duplicate tiers at the same value? Okay. Got it. Now, here's the thing that really, really confused me.
Okay.
This cover here on the left side here. When I kept seeing, and I would look over in the tiers and it would say this tier comes with the Vanilla Ice cover. I thought that was a costume variation.
Oh.
you literally have Vanilla Ice on the cover of Kamen America. This needs explanation. What the heck is going on with that?
So I think I've talked to you about this before. We keep a lot of our dealings secret. We don't reveal anything until we launch something. And this was probably besides the Em-8er announcement, this was the second one where it's like the people who knew about it, we said, you keep a tight lip. You don't show anyone anything that's going on. You don't even talk about it. And so I think some of the people who knew was like my friend Doug Ernst. He knew for a few months already that we were doing this, but the person who heads Vanilla Ice's merchandising is a very avid reader of Iconic Comics, just likes our whole library of work, likes what we're doing. And so the opportunity presented itself where it's like, hey, we want to do a lot of pilot merchandising. So we want to try something out. And we just thought, it would actually be kind of neat if we had Kamen America with Vanilla Ice on like a variant cover. And I said, well, that's interesting because one of the first scenes in the book actually takes place at like a concert venue. And so we thought, oh, that's perfect. Then, the two of them will actually mesh pretty well. So we got Genzoman, who's a legendary Street Fighter artist, has done a lot of work for Udon, and we approached him with it. And we said, hey, here's a kind of a strange opportunity. And he took it. Like he was so excited to work on it. And then we slapped it on the cover, and that's it. A lot of people have been saying like that is it's the weirdest team up we've seen this year, but on the other hand, it's not. It almost like fits pretty well.
I don't know what to think of it, to tell you honestly. I was like, wow, this is strange. This is like when I first saw the South Park episode on World of Warcraft. I'm like, okay, now you're starting to cross over in the mainstream there, and it just feels like surreal land to me.
Yeah, but it was a lot of fun. That was a very interesting collaboration, and with what we're doing with Em-8er, we like these kind of partnerships that we have where we kind of think that the parties involved all have something cool that we want to show off with other people. So this one's going to be a lot of fun. It's limited to right now it's 200 prints, but there are some extra ones. I don't think we're going to be selling those online. I think those are going to go straight to the merchandising venues. So who knows, if anyone listening, if you ever attend a Vanilla Ice concert here in the near future, you might actually see these for sale, but there's not going to be a lot of them. That's for sure.
So you heard it here first. It's going to be a limited edition run. You'll never see this again. The FOMO is with you on this one.
I just learned that phrase a few weeks ago. I was like, what's FOMO? It's like, fear of missing out.
Yes. and you've done it here with the cover excellently. So the tiers, you have a lot of tiers here. So digital omnibus, digital volume 5, you go up to the physical ones, and then you get the standees at the $35 level.
Right.
And what's the Fateful Lightning CD?
So the main theme from the trailer, we actually have that in a CD form. This is one of those things where, again, from a business point of view, I actually have to listen to people who tell me things where I'm like, what, really? Are you serious? Because I don't collect. Like I stopped collecting a very long time ago, especially after we started moving a whole lot. I just thought, well, I just don't have the room for this stuff, so I need to just really, really be picky. And there's just some things I'm not interested in. I haven't bought a CD since I was like 15. It's been a long time, but there are a lot of people who enjoy music and they like CDs and they like recordings and stuff like that. So the Fateful Lightning CD includes the track that we did for our trailer, and it includes the previous track that we did called Velvet Thunder. And I think it's going to feature 2 or 3 additional tracks by Shilava and her band as well. So it's actually a nice little promo item from her.
Oh, fantastic. So, yeah, I mean, you should have just gone 8-track. Should have just gone all the way.
I've got vinyl. Someone asked me that this morning.
I saw that. Someone actually asked for vinyl. Well, vinyl's big now. Vinyl's made it back in a big way.
It's kind of like cartridges for Nintendos.
I'm kicking myself. You know, Chrono Trigger is like my favorite game. And I had the cartridge version and everything, and it sells for so much now, and I lost it. I don't know where it is.
I'll tell you a crazy thing. So I was at a game store the other day, and I saw that Valkyrie Profile was selling for $500. And I was like, what? Really? I have that game.
That and Hack. I think the original volumes of Hack sell for a tremendous amount too.
Wow. You know, things you never think about. You just buy them, you enjoy them, and it's like, you're actually holding on to some gold there.
I tell my kids, throw away nothing. Keep all original boxes of your toys.
I might be sitting on a gold mine too, because all my Nintendo cartridges are all in box with the instruction booklets and everything. The only thing they're missing is the shrink wrapping.
Yep. I'm pretty aware of that now, and I save stuff. You know, Legos too. It's like we will buy Lego kits for Christmas for the kids, and we'd buy the special editions. We would always buy 2, because by the time that, you know, the kids are done assembling the first one, the second one, it's out of print, and you can sell it and get more than your money back for both kits. So Lego is better than most stocks. Just, you know, there's a stock tip for you right there.
Is it better than crypto?
It's better than crypto too, because it only seems to go up. All right, then you have, and okay, I see that. Then you have the international packages here. So if you want international, you have to select that tier. Here's the US tier and an international tier. And then I guess the next level up gets you the mouse pad.
Correct.
And that says masked mouse pad, and then you can get the other one. And then there's an unmasked version too.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's somewhere here.
And then at 105, you get the Vanilla Ice variant cover. He's a premium, folks. If you want Vanilla Ice, that's at the 100+ tier. But you're out of this tier, the 105 tier and the 155 tier, original art.
They like the unmasked mouse pad with that combination, apparently.
So what happens when these fill up? I was asking you about stretch goals, and our community has lots of opinions upon stretch goals here and lots of suggestions probably. But you told me something interesting about how you run your campaigns and stretch goals. What was that?
We don't do stretch goals. That's the big one. And there's a couple of reasons why we don't do them. One is speed, because if you do stretch goals, you have to basically build that in where it's like, okay, well, we're going to do bumper stickers. Okay, well, if that's a stretch goal, then that means that you will have to order bumper stickers. And as these goals increase, you have to start compiling it, and it adds to your overhead. And one of the problems that a lot of campaigns have is they get really ambitious because they're like, okay, let's add this and this and this. And some of them don't budget for it because the idea was that it kind of was a spur of the moment thing. They decided to pull the trigger on it. But especially with things going on in the world right now with supply chain crises and whatnot, there's really no guarantee of new product arriving when you need it. So that's one. The second thing, too, is that one of the things that makes our campaign unique is that something like a hardcover book is a stretch goal in and of itself. So there's some comic creators out there who have campaigns, and they say, well, if we hit the $100,000 mark, we're going hardcover. We bypass that completely and say, or you can just back our campaign, and for $10 you just get hardcover. Like, there's no pressure on you to try and, you know, convince everyone to sell or to sell for us, because you get it right away. So our marketing perspective is there's no risk, because you're not going to have to wait on product. We typically buy all this stuff ahead of time. And the second thing is there's no pressure to try and convince other people to upgrade your own order, because you already have an upgraded order from the moment that you buy our book. So those are the reasons why we do them. I know that in our first campaign, we got some complaints about it, but I think people now kind of see our methodology, and we don't really get any complaints after that.
because you get the book as soon as possible, right after the campaign ends. You get all the physical stuff, and that's hard to do. Physical delivery of all that stuff.
Right. And so everything has to be working in synchrony. One of the things that really annoys me is when schedules are off. I'm very time oriented. I like being able to do what I say and say what I do and put things out in the manner I say I'm going to do them. So these books are already at the printer. They're going to be heading to us in early March, and we print domestically. So as far as supply chains are concerned, we're not waiting on an international boat or plane to deliver anything.
Yeah, that's kind of why Ember fans, the Brontodon is on hold, the plushie that the vendor wanted to do, because they're actually based overseas in China, and I just wasn't comfortable with the shipping times, and the other issues around that. So that I totally hear you on that. In these times, with shipping being this crazy, and fulfillment is very, very difficult. So it's great that you're offering the additional European slots. And it's great that you're shipping so fast after the campaign concludes.
Yeah, we try to be. There have been some not mistakes, but there have been some obstacles behind the scenes, but we don't tell our readers that. So they to them it looks like everything ran smoothly. But I'll tell you a really funny story. Those boxes that we send them in when was this? It was early November of last year. The company that sent them, they lost all 7 pallets of boxes. They just vanished somewhere in Waco, Texas. And it was a debacle. It was for 24 hours, just playing phone tag with people trying to find it. And we actually found them. It wasn't the company that sent them. We actually tracked them down and found out where they were. But again, that's not on the reader to necessarily have to contend with. That's up to us to try and figure out. So we try to avoid as many hurdles as possible.
Makes a lot of sense. Fire up. So I'm going to walk people through. We've been making a MMO, right? And what I know that you're a console player. You're not that familiar with MMOs. Maybe the closest thing is Final Fantasy 14 on console. Big MMO hit on console. Such a big hit that they ran out of copies to sell, and only recently were able to start selling them again. But basically, for those of you who don't know, you can think of an MMO as a large open world game. You've seen these large open world games, right? Except instead of just being single player or even with 4 players, my personal definition of MMO is you have to have at least 100 players running around at any time in any given area, which means that there's literally thousands of players online, and that you get to actually interact with them, and you actually, get to form communities, and there's a strong social aspect to it that's missing from a lot of modern MMOs, but that we're bringing back to Ember. And a lot of people are correcting me. Wrong. An MMO has to have fishing. Yes, good MMOs have to have fishing. That's my rule too. And so I want to talk a little bit about Ember and how this all started. Now, I'll just key up some art here. So I'm going to turn off chat. So what you see in the background here is a piece of Ember art that CSR did for us. And this is Carmen, who is one of the kaiju researchers in Ember. And she is a costume you can get in the game as part of our monthly patron program. Some people have unlocked this one. You can also purchase it. We have a cosmetic program, basically. So the game is buy once, no subscription fee. And then if you'd like to support additional content, then go ahead and purchase costumes and whatnot, accessories for your characters. And we'll go into that system a little bit later. But, I wanted to get away from the subscription model, and I wanted to offer an MMO that was less than $70. So it's going to be at we haven't announced a formal price, but the sort of like the high indie price of things. And then we wanted to support it with ongoing feature development. And the way we do it is pretty interesting, because obviously making a game is a long endeavor, a very expensive endeavor. So we broke it up into tiny little milestones. And we've had a couple of fundraisers in the past on Indiegogo. Like the first one was for a website. It's because people asked me to make this game. They said, Mark, we really want you to make, a successor to Firefall back when it was good, when you were running the company and it was in beta and we all loved it. Can you do that? And I said, well, if you put up if you put up enough money and we start a website, then maybe. They said, yeah, we want a website and forums. And so we did that. And then later on, the community was like, hey, now that you've got the community website, we'd like to see just some artwork for what the game might look like. And I said, okay. And I put up another Indiegogo for that. And you guys smashed through all the barriers, 600% overfunded, all that sort of stuff. And I was amazed because I'd priced the first Indiegogo the lowest I could because I didn't think there was that much interest in the type of MMO that I wanted to pursue. And this is very important. But it turns out I was wrong. And you guys are a testament to that you're here today, that the demand is there. And MMOs have undergone kind of revival. There's been a lot of interest in Final Fantasy 14. A whole bunch of people have jumped back into that. And even Amazon's New World, when it first arrived, just smashed concurrency records across the board. People are ready for a new type of MMO, and that's what we're trying to do with Em-8er. But instead of me going into like the game mechanics of it, I will first want to tell you kind of what the fantasy of Em-8er is, right? I think games have to promise you a fantasy. They have to promise you a life that you'd like to live that's outside of reality, and it has to be attractive to you. And that would be sort of like the thematic premise of the game. And then I think players look at the mechanics and go, is that a mechanic that I can get into? So I talk about the pillars of Em-8er really being a mech versus kaiju game. Right? And we have like mech versus kaiju and waifu. Like, we're not afraid to have attractive female characters, attractive male characters. We have husbandos as well. And to just sort of like live out that power fantasy of having another life in a world that's just living and breathing that you can actually feel immersed in. Now, the world is set in the far future. Humanity is expanded amongst the stars, and there is a foremost group of explorers known as the Gate Striders that actually go through these jump gates to discover very dangerous work, jump through these gates to discover other planets. And one day they stumbled upon the wrong part of space. There's these sort of black sectors of space that you're not supposed to go to, that a mysterious entity known as the Inshigi has ruled off limits for all of humanity. And they're actually an advanced branch of humanity that's like way ahead of anybody else. And they said, don't go to these places. Well, the Gate Striders did, and the punishment was that their home world was immediately destroyed. And the Gate Striders got canceled by the rest of humanity. They said, whoa, we're not taking in your refugees. We don't want to get our homeworld smashed. You did something wrong. You're on your own from here on out. So the Gate Striders went from being the premier explorers of humanity to having to basically ragtags, round up what was left of who they had and to find a new home for themselves and to scrabble together what they could, technology, to form gates to try to explore and find a new homeworld. And that's when they came across a planet named Em-8er, which is the namesake of the game. Em-8er is spelled EM-8ER because that's sort of like the astronomical, official name for it. You know how stars have numbers and letters instead of impronounceable names before they get named by humanity? That's the idea for why the planet's named EM-8ER. But it's pronounced Em-8er, not Em-8er, as so many have tried to convince me to call it, but Em-8er. And it's actually in the Japanese in the logo that we have. So the Gate Striders, they arrive on Em-8er and they decide to start terraforming the planet. And that's where you, the player, come in. You are a Gate Strider, and you are here on a new planet to stake a claim on this planet and to sort of like build out for the rest of humanity. And the Gate Striders, they evolved, humanity evolved in different ways to handle the rigors of space and terraforming other planets when they first colonized star systems. And the Gate Striders they grew up on their original homeworld was very harsh, and they were really good at developing robotics and mecha as a way of dealing with that, dealing with the harsh gravity of the world, dealing with the hard labor of, claim staking and expanding out. And so that was their shtick. Other branches of humanity, they might have gone genetic engineering, they might have gone some other route, they might have just naturally evolved. But the Gate Striders said, no, we want to specialize in mecha. So that's where the mecha angle comes in. But they're not soldiers, right? They didn't start off that way. They started off as colonists and more like the Wild West. They have a very rugged, individualistic personality, a very sort of like do it yourself mentality. Take the hand with your bare hands and craft it into something for you and your family. And so this is sort of like the mentality that they have, and they've banded together to colonize this planet. But unfortunately, what happened was they encountered another species that was also looking to inhabit that planet. Another set of what you might call more aggressive invaders that weren't just satisfied with invading Em-8er. They actually wanted to take over the rest. They actually want to take over the rest of the galaxy, and they pose a huge threat not only to the Gatestriders but to the rest of the universe. A little bit of Mass Effect there, a little Geth-like, I guess. But these guys, they're a little bit different. So where humans, the Gatestriders focus on mecha, the alien race that we're talking about, called the Tsihu, they went a different direction with their war machinery. Instead of building giant mechs and things like this, they grew up on a planet with giant kaiju, with monsters, and they had to learn to evolve under those circumstances. And they eventually learned how to enslave and control these kaiju for their needs, and they used them as beasts of war. And they used them ruthlessly to invade other planets and to come through these dimensional gates and wreak havoc upon humanity and anyone else that gets in their way. So let's talk about some of the pre-production work here. So we spent a lot of time. There's actually writing the lore of the game. There's actually a novel in progress. We're about 8 or 9 chapters in. We wrote the vision book that has backstory on the game. And we did a lot of concept art, and we did a lot of I would say developer prototyping in Unreal Engine for this, which you'll get to see in a little bit. And it all starts with the Gatestriders themselves, right? With the characters. This, unlike most mecha games, where you're, like Armored Core, where you never get to see your pilot, we wanted that human touch. We thought it was very important to see the character in the mecha and to be able to hop out of the mecha into bases and the home station that orbits the planet. And we wanted to have, like I said, waifus and husbandos. I'll start with the male figures here. No, I'm kidding. I'm starting with the waifus. And we decided to have cute, sexy robots and a couple of artists start to do work for us. And we decided that we wanted to be very loose with the style. Like Gatestriders are very individualistic. They're not all going to wear uniforms. They dress how they want to dress, and they go ahead and express their individuality this way. And it's also a great way, I think, when you're doing cosmetics in a game, that you get to wear what you want, right? And so, starting with the waifus, this is Marigold, and Marigold is one of our most recent concept artists. It's kind of like a community suggested thing where they wanted like a Battle Angel Alita style of character. And so we went to CSR and said, hey, what can we do to create this sort of thing? And I think he came up with an amazing concept here. So Marigold is part cyborg, right? Gatestriders don't normally adopt cybernetics. They go ahead and regrow their organic limbs. They have advanced medical technology to do that. But Marigold's kind of like a hybrid where they have actually taken mecha technology and ingrained them in themselves. And if you want to see the pictures, you got to watch us on Twitch. I'm sorry for that. It's not something I can double post here. So head on over to our Twitch channel if you're in Discord and you want to see the art for the game. And, we even have characters like Selusha here, who's a sniper type character. And these are different skins that you can equip on your character. And they're also highly customized too. Our skins are not just static. They have different grades of customization, which I'll talk about. And so, to give you an example of what they look like in game, the concept art on the left is our Feli character, very popular character skin that we debuted a while ago. And this is another CSR art piece. And on the right, what you see is our actual character model in game. So this shows you how close we can get. And we are using Unreal Engine 5 recently. We just started switch to it, but the demo you're going to see today is Unreal Engine 4. It'll be because we're doing prototyping in Unreal Engine 4, and then we stopped and we said, hey, let's try Unreal Engine 5 and do some experiments. And those are working out great. but not all the graphics are in Unreal 5 yet. But we wanted to give you an example here because people said, how close can you get to the look of these characters? So how are we doing so far, Tim?
Pretty good.
It's kind of amazing what the lighting engine can do for you, and we've been happy with this. And this is actually with RTX ray tracing on, but you don't need ray tracing with Unreal 5. You can use Lumen, which is their sort of like CPU based path tracing method to get a lot of the benefits for that.
What I like about it too is that when I saw that one, you had posted it some time ago on Twitter. I actually thought that was a painting. Like there was nothing that kind of told me that was something that was like rendered in game. So I like the aesthetic because you were able to kind of take the first image and really do justice to it and convert it into something that retains the visual style while also being an in-game feature.
And that was not easy to do, I have to say. So if I pull up the movie here, this is real time in Unreal 5. You can I've actually shown the demo where we move the camera around and everything. And I want to have a caveat here is that these are with 4K textures, which are really high resolution. And in a game, you normally won't see 4K textures on your character while you're running around. But what we want to do is when you get into photo mode and you can like pan around the characters and things, that you can actually bump up the textures to 4K so you can get some really great screenshots. And the running joke here is, Tim, they kept asking me to see the tail one day of the character. And so I would pan the camera around. They wanted to see how the tail attached. And it was actually an honest question, but everyone just assumed that was because they wanted a rear view of the character.
Yeah, explained that to me because I thought, wait, how does the tail attach? Like,
yeah.
Because I thought it would be an academic thing where it's like, oh, it goes into like the butt. It's like, no, your tailbone.
I totally bought into that too. I was like zooming in and everything. I was like, and here's where it connects to the butt crack, and and I was like, oh wait, you got me.
Yeah.
All right, so these gate striders, we call them pilots, right? And sorry, where's my Neko button? I had a Neko button. Sorry, 1 second, folks. I gotta like figure out how to stop the movie. It's getting away from me. Oh, there. All right, we'll just keep that playing in the background. I just set up my Elgato today. I was like, I had all these buttons. I have statue, oh, it flipped on me. That's what it did. All right, there we go. All right, so that's the Neko skin, and there's actually a race of genetically engineered cat people in the game called Feli, Feli, and Gate Striders kind of recruit and adopt from all the places in the universe. So, anybody can become a Gate Strider no matter what planet they're on. So Feli evolved on a planet with low gravity, and their way of dealing with it was to basically breed cat-like genes into their DNA so that they could handle zero gravity better. Here's something that other people haven't seen yet. So for the Ember fans out there, you've seen the middle skin, which is Adaressa, but you haven't seen the other two. And again, like I said, we're just kind of playing with the ability to be anything you want. And some skins are going to be more in theme with the game, and some are going to be silly. Like, in Team Fortress 2, there was a lot of controversy when they introduced hats. You remember that way back when?
Oh,
and
yeah.
Yeah, people felt like it pulled you out of the immersion and everything else. Well, what we're doing is we're actually we tag our skins with metadata. So if you want to stay in lore, or if you're only comfortable with a certain amount of let's say skin showing or whatever, you can actually mute skins in game. You can actually right click on another player and say, I don't want to see this skin, and they'll default back to their regular skin. Or you can actually, in your graphics options, set that you only want to see lore specific skins to have a consistent world, and you don't want to see the silly stuff running around like beer hats and things like that, you can actually set that as a preference in the game, and you won't be pulled out of the immersion that way. And I think that solves it for both worlds, right? If you want to have the crazy looks and stuff, which tend to do really well with people want the cat ears, the beer hats, and all that stuff, you can go do that. But if you're a player that just wants to be immersed in the lore of the world and you don't want to be pulled out of it, you can easily select that graphics option. I think we're the first game to offer anything like that.
It sounds like it, because every game that I'm aware of that has skins options, it's like, nah, you see whatever the other player decides to use. But you're right. I mean, I never thought about it in the sense of, well, what if your sense of immersion requires not seeing certain things?
It does, but it used to bug me. I was really against that sort of stuff, but so many players demanded it that I was like, okay, let's go ahead and do it, and it did really well. And so for Em-8er, I was like, I want an option where if I just want to be immersed in a world, I just want to do that. So you can have a pilot, and you can change their appearance at any time, and it's really about the merger of the pilot with their mecha. And so let me show you some of the husbando art we have here, and then we'll go ahead and get into some of the mecha. So for the husbandos, you can see that we have, and this is a work in progress 3D model that Toshi has made with the version 2 G suit. This is a very in lore costume. This is what the characters normally look like. And the version 2 G suit is something that you get with the newcomer packs that are still available on our site. And I should mention that for the duration of your Kickstarter, Tim, we're running 10% off all our packs and $1 on our subscription programs. I'll get to that a little later, but it's a little perk to incentivize anybody who from your community who might be thinking about getting into Em-8er. Now's a good time to do it because we're running the discounts, and you do get this suit. This is the version 2 G suit. Hasn't been colored yet or textured yet, but I think you can see it kind of looks like our sculpts, right? Like we put about the same amount of detail into this that we do the sculpts, and we're actually able to render this real time in games.
Yeah, I couldn't help thinking about that tail comment. So I was trying to make a witty joke, and then I'm trying to make one for the front side, but I think I can do.
Oh, look, everyone told me it's like, if you're going to have a boob slider, you need a bulge slider. So that's where that's coming from.
That's a rendered cod piece going on right there.
We have to be equal opportunity here.
Totally.
And then this is a close-up of the front of the face and torso.
Yes.
Eyes up. Eyes up. And then we have some crazy skins like the Archduke. And this is Andy Face, another one of our concept artists who does these really cool stylized things. And I know that this is a favorite of many people because they want that swagger. They want that look.
He looks like the bad guy from Westworld.
Ooh, yeah. And he's got these and he's got plenty of guns too, which is another awesome thing. The combat in Em-8er is not like an MMO. MMOs are tab targeting and everything like this. This is very much action oriented, which you'll see in a second. And this is another typical in lore themed Gate Strider. This type of typical outfit that they would wear. This is another skin that we're doing that Andy did for us. And then we have some cheesecake. So we have the husbando cheesecake here. This is Pex, as he's that's his name, because the female equivalent skin of this is named Abby, and this is Pex.
Clever.
It's the community named them, not me. I blame them.
I like the aesthetic. I don't know if you play much fighting games, but it reminds me a little bit of Guilty Gear. A lot of their costumes are very they stand out because of how unique they are.
Yeah, I do like Guilty Gear a lot. The game is not cell shaded. We're like you've seen the renders of the Neko and things like that. But yeah, the idea is just to have fun with it and to let you dress the way you want to dress. And then if you want to be lore specific and wear your G suit, pressure suits, and stuff like that, you can too. And the latest skin up for monthly subs is Zero, the Hunter. So this is a gate strider who's gone out and killed many kaiju, and we have kaiju of different sizes. So they range from like really tiny to taller than buildings basically, and they are and Zero has gone out here and collected trophies from all of them. It's kind of like our homage to Predator, and gets to wear all that stuff. And that's the skin available this month for just $1 if you sign up. So the first month is free. First month is just $1, and then it goes up to $7.95. And people unlocked and collect these skins in the community, and which is a way of funding the whole art redo that we're doing right now. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. All right, so you have the pilots, and there will be a character customizer. So you can, like I said, there's sliders for nearly everything. People have asked, are you going to be extensive as Black Desert Online or BDO? Not quite that extensive. We're not doing hair sliders or anything like that, but we do have quite a bit going on, and you'll be able to customize your Gate Strider in many ways. All right, so that was like one pillar. It's like, okay, we want interesting characters, and we want a lot of customization because cosmetics are what is going to drive the sales model to keep the servers on and everything else, because we're not doing a subscription model, right? MMOs need to run servers on the back end. And so we have to have something that sort of like keeps the lights on there and keeps things running. And then we'll get to the mecha here. And this is the meat and potatoes of Em-8er, right? So a pilot is really about their synergistic relationship between the pilot and the mecha that they pilot. And there are 3 essential frame sizes here. And this is what we call the light omni frame. And everything in the game is crafted, right? So let me back up a little bit. Em-8er is sort of my reaction to highly structured MMOs, right? I come from being the team lead on WoW, and WoW is an example of how we took one genre. There are many different types of MMOs at the time, a lot of different experiments, but we took the sort of EverQuest model, which has leveling of characters and restrictions. So you have to be in zone A before you can go into zone B and C. And you have to have end dungeons and raids and things like this. And it's a very structured progression. And I kind of wanted to get away from that. And Em-8er is much more of what we call a sandbox MMO. If you want to go someplace on the map that you see, you can go ahead and go there, right? And if you want to, go do your own thing, you can go ahead and do that. And instead of having a bunch of static quests and things that you have to follow necessarily, it's sort of like go your own way. So you can sort of, there's a resource motif where you're going out and you're crafting up all your gears and abilities to survive in this harsh world. And one of the things that you can build is your mecha, and you can customize your mecha however you like. And you can have a whole garage of them, sort of like how Tony Stark has like 47 or however many Iron Man suits at the end in his house. You can have a garage full of these things that you've customized for yourself. And starting with the light frame. The light frame is designed to be high mobility and to specialize in melee combat. And this is where we wanted kind of that. All the mecha tend to be smaller than the biggest of the kaiju. So it's kind of like that Attack on Titan feeling that we wanted. And the light mecha probably gives you the most of that feeling with the mobility. They have jetpacks and gliders, and you could even craft potentially things like grappling hooks, and they are melee equipped, so you can have dual beam swords and things like this, and run around that way. And again, the idea is that it's kind of like building your mecha in a garage. Like I say often that it should be like Gran Turismo, where you're collecting cars and you're working on them and tinkering. And using the crafting system, you can like influence how much armor they have, or you can transfer that to offensive systems or defensive systems, or ability modules that you can slot in to do different things. After that, we have the medium frame, which is slightly more armored and heavier. And this one is a little more heavily armored, and it actually can dual wield ballistic weapons and has hard points for additional weapon systems. It too can fly. It's a little less fast, a little less mobile than the light frame. And it has an exposed cockpit still because we wanted to see the pilot, but it has what's called a hard driver mode. Hard driver mode is where you can go fully encapsulated. So and this arrived early on because our community they said, we like seeing the character, but I want to feel more armored up. Is there a way we can enclose the pilot? And we said yes, and we created hard driver mode so that you can actually turn and toggle that on and off in the character. All right, then we get to the heavy frames and this is for fans of like Armored Core or Titanfall, probably more Armored Core than Titanfall. And this is fully enclosed, right? So basically you are sitting in a giant mecha and it's very heavy and it's got long range weapons on it and a lot of armor, and it moves slower and it doesn't glide, but it does do something pretty unique. It shield surfs. So the heavy ones can be equipped with a shield, and you can actually use your jets to get up in the air, and then you can jump on your shield and glide down. And that is our shtick for that. And if you've ever watched anime like Eureka 7 or something like that, it's very much inspired by that.
So far, of the 3 frames, which one do people tend to like the most?
Oh, that's a tough one. A lot of people have been waiting for the heavy, but let's see what they say in chat. What do you guys think? Light, medium, or heavy for you guys? Yeah, it's pretty split. I see a lot of light, I see a lot of heavy, and some medium. Uh-oh. Medium's not as popular. Why not all 3?
All or nothing. You either go heavy or you go light, apparently.
Yep, min-maxers. Gamers like to min-max, right? You're right. The original Firefall fans lean towards the light, and people who came for Armored Core or that type of feeling lean towards the heavy. So the idea is that you can build and collect these, and they have different purposes in combat, and there's different movement modes for them as well. And there's like some early art on how these things are open up and what the interior cockpit of the heavy might look like. We've been doing some drawings. These are new for the community. This is stuff we haven't shown before. And this is all part of, we're building these 3 frames prior to, because we're going to do a Kickstarter this year as well. And we want to get a playable mock-up ready for them. And we have the medium in the game right now using the old art that I did myself. And I'm having, actual professional artists go and do now. But then we also have the heavy frame that we'll be building out in the light frame. And you'll be able to choose between these in the demo. And then a rough size comparison between the 3 of the light, medium, and heavy. And the heavy is actually going to get bigger because you can't actually fit into this cockpit. We did some modeling tests with it, and we're going to have to make the heavy bigger than this.
So that it works in scale.
Yeah. And because this is obviously fudged right here. It's like if you took the light frame, even without the armor, and tried to fit it into the heavy, it just really wouldn't work. So imagine the heavy would be maybe another 20% bigger than this. So you're going to see some real size variation out there on the field. So this is so what happens is, the world that you're competing for is you're trying to terraform the planet around you. And this is one giant planet, by the way. There are actually no planned servers. That what we want to do is imagine a giant planetary map where all the players are on it at the same time, and you're spread out by geography and ping, just as you would be in the real world. So if you're playing from Asia, you're on one side of the planet. If you're playing from the Americas, you're on the other side of the planet, and that groups you by ping. But there's nothing that prevents you from going, around to the other side of the planet. Your ping will be worse, but you can sort of like go anywhere and visit anything. And that freedom is the type of thing, that I wanted to achieve to get away from the zone-based structure of traditional MMOs. And one thing that people really liked about early beta Firefall was you could go anywhere and do anything. And so that's something that we really wanted to do here. Yep, and Europe would be somewhere in the middle of the two. And then we have some, so you can customize these. This is one look for frames. And I realize that people like to have different looks rather than, oh, I don't like the Armored Core look. I like more of the super robot look. Again, we're not married to anyone's style. We just kind of want you to do whatever you feel like doing. And so we have, some variations here. I take this off. And this is another potential look for the light frame. I call this the sporty look.
I like that. That's awesome.
And it's a lot more, it's less military. It's a more racing team, more sleek. And then there's the medium variant as well. And again, some people here in chat haven't seen this yet. Front and back of the medium. Again, exposed pilot, but you can have a hard driver mode and be suited up. And then you got the heavy here too. So this is the heavy variant. I don't know if you've seen this, Skills. We're showing some new stuff here. You've seen some of it. We've shown some of it, but you can see that we want to have a bunch of different looks for it. And so the idea is that you go out in the world and you equip these mecha and you use it, because if you don't, you're going to have a hard time fighting the invaders of the world, the Tsihu, who are armed with their kaiju. So I think it's a good time to go and talk about the Tsihu a little bit. So the Tsihu, like I said, are sort of like the other species that's here to invade, except they're evil, right? Convention of fiction. They're the bad guys. You're the good guys. You're terraforming the planet and you're bringing it back to life, because it's actually starts off as a cold, frozen wasteland, and you get to sort of like add resources that you mine and bring it up through different terraforming stages. And this is like some work we did. This is on the art redo. So we've been doing an art pass on all the characters in the game, and this is the primary enemy that you're fighting against, and they have a very different theme. In contrast to the, very sci-fi mechanical nature of the Gate Striders, the primary enemy of the game that's fighting against you is almost, tribalistic in a way, but they still employ technology. They use crystal-driven technology for everything they do, from their weapons to everything else. And it's a dynamic war front. So in this open world, you're always trying to take territory and reclaim it and terraform it, and they're always trying to destroy it and take it away from you. So whatever you have terraformed up, they like to go and invade. And there's these invasions that sort of sweep across the planet. So the playable space of the planet is always changing. It's always dynamic. Now, there's something special about the Tsihu in that they are actually shapeshifters, right? So they are part kaiju themselves, and they have a sort of mini kaiju form. And in this form, the humanoid form, they're more focused on technology and using ranged weapons and things like this. And when they switch into what we call beast mode, then they're like absolute melee freaks. And you don't want to get close to these guys when they transform into their mini kaiju form. And what I'm going to show today is what people haven't seen is actual work in progress of the new beast form from purely conceptual nature. All right. I'm going to show you guys, and no one's seen this before, and it's going to change because obviously this is very refined, the way that we have the Tsihu right now. And what I'm going to show you is a very rough idea, but just think of the vibe. It's going to change, but I want you to think of the vibe. So these guys can shapeshift into these guys. And this is the new beast mode that we have been working on. And it's not quite there yet. It's just sort of like a rough concept sculpt to give you an idea of what they look like when they're in beast mode. And when these things are in beast mode, they can basically rip your mecha to shreds. So, and we're thinking about also giving them an energy beam on their back. That disc there might actually focus into some kind of cannon. And so the Tsihu will have, not only do they shapeshift into this, they will have a variety of kaiju that they employ as war machines, tank analogs, plane analogs, and things like this. Because this is actually a game where you can pilot a lot of different vehicles, not just mecha, and they're going to have a lot of different offensive stuff too. You can think of it as playing like if an MMO were an RTS, a real-time strategy game played on the ground. And then that is kind of the vibe that we're after here, where when they do invade, it's a massive event on the server. And you have to go and defend your territory and defend your bases from them, things like this, using any manner of things. And when a zone is under attack, the game authorizes you, the Gatestrider Council authorizes you to use bigger and better weapons. So the amount of weapons and what you can deploy depends on the severity of the invasion that you face and how big the kaiju are. And the bigger the invasion, the more stuff you can bring to bear. And again, everything that you bring to bear, heavy mechs and the tanks and planes and other things I'm going to show you, all depend on your crafting. Have you crafted them? Have you built up resources? Oh, I almost forgot to show you that my avatar does have a frame of its own. So there's my light frame for my avatar, and I can pop glider wings too. So I'll stay in this form for the rest of the presentation because I'll need it because we're talking about the enemies here.
That's not what I thought. I thought you'd go into beast mode too.
Oh, that maybe that's the next avatar. I have a couple of these. I almost came as maid Grums. I have Grums in a maid outfit, and that tends to be the most popular one. But I thought, no, I people wouldn't get it who are here for the first time, so I'll just stay in my normal mode for this. But I will.
They're coming here from the Kamen America group. We've drawn some weird stuff, so it might
well, maybe later I'll show off maid Grums. And that's beast mode for that. And then we also have like their little fighting companions, right? So I'll show you the movie. So if I show you this movie here, all right. So this is again another Unreal Engine 5. This is what they look like, or they will look like in the Unreal 5 version of the game that we're building right now. Again, we're doing a whole art pass on the demo that I'm going to show you in a little bit. And that is how they look. And they're accompanied by what we call the knee biters. So these guys are basically swarmers. The knee biters are going to move in like basically hunting packs of like 10 or 15 each. And the idea is that they're kind of like the Flood in Halo, that we really just want a lot of them on screen, and we want them jumping up on mechs and swarming them. And if they jump up on your mining mech, then they're going to like slow you down from your mining activities and things like that. So like I said, I mean, where other MMOs focus on, say, being, quest driven in their structure, we're more open. And your primary activity is on two fronts. One is you're trying to terraform the land, and the way you do that is you find, locate, and mine resources in the world, and you mine them with your thumper mech, and you use those to create your battle frames and to also build bases throughout the world. And the more bases you build and the more resources you contribute as a group to terraforming the planet, the stronger everyone becomes, basically. So there's no levels in the game. It's all crafting tiers, and it's far less structured than traditional MMOs. So let me show you what your thumper looks like. So this is your thumper mining mech. This is what you can call down from your dropship. And when you locate a pocket of resources, you can mine out the resources with this mining mech, and you have to defend it. It's an encounter. Anytime that you're mining for resources, that will attract enemy attention. And you'll have to basically defend the miner while the mining mech while it's doing its job. in order to gather the resources. And there's some variants here that we haven't shown yet. We want you to be able to customize your thumper too and have different looks for it. And they actually have AI personalities. So they're actually going to have lines of dialogue, and you'll be able to swap personality packs. So you can have your Omni frame, which is kind of like your giant robot friend, basically, like Iron Giant. And so Giga Bear says, "Can I have a Bumblebee one?" And so this is sort of like the idea is that this is the biggest pet in the game.
And you don't ride around in the thumpers, though, correct?
You don't. They're AI guided. So
right.
Basically, they're autonomous. You call them down. They're not meant for fighting. They're meant for mining, but you have to defend them while they're doing the mining.
They're like droids, essentially.
Yep, with personalities that you can slot in and out. And speaking of AI personalities, I wanted to give every player an AI assistant that interfaces with their mech. Because the way you control the mechs is a combination of these gauntlets, like you see my avatar is wearing, my VTuber is wearing these gauntlets. They mirror the motions of my arms, but there's also a Neuralink interface to the frame itself. So you can activate things mentally as well, and that you can actually pull off maneuvers and abilities that you couldn't do with just physical controls. And there's also a connection between the pilot and the frame called the operational AI, or OPAI for short. And this is also another opportunity where you can customize it. You can choose your OPAI assistant, right? And you can actually form a bond with that AI. And the stronger bond you have with your OPAI assistant, the better your mech is going to function. So you have, and we also have skins for this that we were developing. And this was the first one we did, and her name is Celeste. And you can think of it as like a Cortana, right? Like in Halo. So you can manifest this as a hologram in the world, and it also appears on your UI. And they call out like tactical information that's important to you on the battlefield. If anything is, happening that you should be aware of, if you're under attack, it'll let you know. And you can go ahead and have dialogue with these holograms, and you can actually sort of like people call it the dating sim. It's not quite a dating sim, but the more that you use an AI and certain operational AI, the more perks you can unlock, and the more passive benefits you can give to your frame by developing a relationship with your OP AI. And they all have unique personalities. Celeste is one personality, and then a much more distinctive one is Ashi. Ashi is the Tsundere. I don't know how you pronounce it. She's a little bit twisted. Yeah, Yandere, not Tsundere. Yeah, Yandere.
Yeah, and Tsundere are the ones who are like, I don't like you.
Yeah, that's. And this was another popular one that CSR did. And so so she's kind of like the little bit twisted AI, the Yandere AI. And again, if you can get through to her and you can have, a working relationship with her, then you're going to be able to control your mechs better too. So there's that whole aspect of the game too. It's sort of like everything that I ever wanted to do from a JRPG perspective put into a sort of like Western MMO mecha game versus giant kaiju. All right. So what are you fighting? You saw some of the regular enemies that you fight, but during these invasions, they will also bring out giant kaiju to fight you. And this is where people get really excited. So let's see, where did they go? All right. So this is Crotus. Crotus is one of the kaiju primes. These are the largest category kaiju that you actually fight in Em-8er. And they are base destroyers. One thing I should mention is that players do end up building bases in the world, sort of like an RTS. And by contributing resources together and banding together, you can build up the bases on the planet more and more. But of course, the opposing force are these kaiju that stomp through. And Kaiju Prime, there's only 7 of them. And there's 7 very unique looking kaiju. And they, again, are enslaved by the Tsihu, and they've been armored up and technology implanted in them. This guy is big, right? So the way we think of it is we don't really think of these guys as mobs or monsters that when we design them. We think of them as levels. That's how big they are. And that there's multiple stages to taking this down. And it's going to take like 100 players to bring one of these things down. And you can actually land on those towers and go in and sabotage the generators inside to bring down, Crotus's shield systems and things like this. And then you can take out the creature proper. So yeah, it is that big. It's pretty big. We haven't determined final scale yet, but we do plan on them to be extremely, extremely large. And this wouldn't be possible without some advanced Unreal 5 features like nanite, right? So we have nanite to render the immense amount of polygons for his armor, for example. Those would be attached using nanite. And I think that's a good use of it versus terrain or other things which tend to slow down slower systems because we want to make sure we run on lower end systems. But this would be a good potential use for nanite. And this is another Kaiju Prime that you'll face. He doesn't have a name yet. But you can see he has a very distinctive look. And we'll probably also be armoring him up too. And there will be 7 Kaiju Prime, and then there'll be lesser Kaiju that are not named. Banetooth. Jedi says, name him Banetooth. Banetooth's pretty good. Maybe we'll run with Banetooth.
He's kind of cute.
It is kind of cute. We should turn him into a plushie.
Yeah.
Plushie merch. Oh no. Crotus grows bigger with every purchase. Talk about crowdfunding motivation. All right, and again, I mentioned that, like I said, it's a game where the players actually build stuff up in the world. You have to go in and terraform these land masses, and then players get to build bases on them, right? And this is some early work in progress work we did of the bases and what they might look like. This one's probably too much of one piece, right? We want to separate this out into different buildings like an RTS. And so if players wanted to build a base on the land, they could run out and like plop down a building, and it'll start off as just like a construction area. And then other players would go in and contribute additional resources. And the more resources that people contributed to a base, the more stuff would get built up. And you can sort of like get a sense of scale here. If you look at the medium omni frame right over here, they're pretty small compared to the size of the tower. And I think that's important for the sense of scale, because when you have kaiju romping through the world, we really wanted to make this, big and destructible. So we definitely want, a lot of destructibility. Like, the reason we went to voxel terrain and when we switched to Unreal 5 is that kaiju footsteps can be left in terrain, so that if you try to hide in some cliffs, the kaiju can just smash through it and grab you, that sort of thing. And for the bases, we want them to be fully destructible as well.
After a base is destroyed, does it have to be rebuilt, or is there some in-game mechanism where it just resets?
No, you have to rebuild it. So players, you can repair it, right? So you don't have to start from scratch. But again, the idea is to get it's a PvE game. It's you versus a AI controlled enemy force, and you're rushing in there and you're repairing the buildings by contributing the resources that you've mined and gathered throughout the world and fought for into these things. And you can also, there's a logistics aspect. So basically in the game, you're either in these zones that are not under attack and you're trying to terraform them and mine resources and build player bases and contribute to them, which builds up the overall tech crafting tier of the world, which lets you craft bigger and better stuff as a community. And then there are other zones that are already built up that have now attracted the Tsihu, who are now invading it and trying to destroy it. And then that is an invasion scenario where I said you got, like you said, you got a lot more things to work with. You have heavier mechs that you could potentially use. You have tanks, you have planes, and things like this. And it plays more like PlanetSide, if you've ever played or heard of that game, where you kind of have this massive war front going on. Except PlanetSide was player versus player, and this is you versus hundreds of NPCs, basically. But there is a link between the two. So if you are mining resources in one zone, you can actually ferry resources into war zones to give them a buff during that fight. So this way, there's two groups of potential players, right? There's players that may prefer the passive activity. It's not so passive. There's combat involved. But the less frenetic activity of mining and the more constructive ability of building bases and things like this, but they can still participate with the group of players that prefers invasions and the high action of that by ferrying resources to them. And this is where the space truck comes in, or what I call the space truck. So during these times of invasion, there's always an invasion going on, by the way. It's a big world and something's always going to be under attack. You can pilot these things called rover trucks. And rover trucks allow you to convoy resources that players in the zone have gathered to war fronts that are under attack in order to serve to repair stuff, or again, to give them buffs and things like this, sort of logistically representing giving them more supplies for the war effort. But instead of like doing a menu where you just click and drag your resources over and boom, they're delivered by teleportation, we wanted this to be an adventure. So players actually have to convoy these resources back and forth between the front lines and the resource areas. And this is a vehicle that they would use to do it. And another thing that we talk a lot about being different is that current MMOs are kind of an abstraction. They kind of, everything's done through a UI. There's no physicality in the world. If you wanted to convoy resources in a current MMO, the server would just automatically keep track of it and how much you donated, and there'd just be like a window with some buttons you click. Well, we wanted to make the world feel a lot more immersive and physical. So this vehicle actually includes like an interior. So you can actually go in these things when you remove your frame, and you can sit in the pilot seat and drive this vehicle as you convoy the resources to and fro. Now, I want to say one thing. This is like a gameplay feature that we have not yet funded, right? So this is something that would be like an add-on. This is the pitch. It's like, hey, do you want this sort of gameplay where you have to convoy resources, where you have to destroy rocks in the way and things like this, and fight off, enemies as you do it? And if you do, we would have a separate milestone funding for that. And that's something very unique to Em-8er. We don't just say, hey, we're funding the whole game up front. We say, hey, we have a grand vision, but we're breaking it up into components. And the first things we're going to do are the mining aspect and the invasion aspect. And then if you want additional things like this convoying gameplay, then we would have a separate fundraiser for that. And people kind of vote with their dollars, right? And if it's something that people are interested in and it gets funded, then we go ahead and we build it. And in that way, I think, it makes a lot more sense to fund game development with multiple milestones, much like a traditional publisher would. That's how they do it. If a publisher publishes a game, they don't give you all the money up front. They say, okay, in this month we have these deliverables. If you hit them, then we'll go ahead and fund the next one. And so we call this feature-based funding. And so after our Kickstarter, funding will continue, right? Kickstarter covers the base, sort of like bare minimum of the game that we plan to ship. And then the other funding stuff rides on top of that to unlock these different features. But one of the things we'd love to have is that physicality, that feeling that you're actually in the world, that you're driving around these things, and that these things really exist. And I think having interiors for the vehicles really lends themselves to that. All right. Well, that's enough conceptual stuff. How about we jump into the game real quick, and I'll show you how it actually plays from a very basic level. What I'm about to show you is the game running on Unreal 4. It's not our Unreal 5 prototype yet. You can download the work in progress Unreal 5 with the voxel destructible terrain, but it has no textures, right? It has no, it's basically white box design. It's highly experimental. If you would like something that's more akin to how the game is ultimately going to feel like, then the Unreal 4 demo that I'm about to show you is more along those lines. Although with the caveat that I'll tell you that it's all kind of temporary art right now. You've seen all the art that we've been preparing here, and that's going to be making its way into the playable mock-up. All right, so I'm going to just fire us up here and show you what you can do. All right. Can everybody see this?
I can see it.
Okay, let me just... So we do have a login system here. There is an account system that ties to your Em-8er account. And we will be adding a launcher. I know people have been asking for that. So we're not just firing up the game. And hopefully a patch or two, but that's coming a little bit later. All right, I can get my login information.
It's your social security number and credit card.
That's where I parked my car at night. My user ID is easy to guess.
Rums.
All right, so this is a zone we call Copa. This would be an example of after you've terraformed an area from an icy, snowy sort of area, and you've seeded it with genetics, it would sprout up trees and things like this, and a biome would appear. You're not exactly ever sure what biome is going to appear when you terraform. And you can see that we're focused on high mobility here. So you can run around, you have jump jets, and freedom of movement is something that people really liked in Firefall, and so we wanted to encapsulate it here. And then you can also deploy glider wings and glide around. You can force slide, and when you're in the air, you can double tap to dodge. And then, of course, you also have your weapon systems. So this is the standard assault rifle that's in the demo right now. And you can also switch to first person by clicking the middle mouse button. So depending on how you want to play, it's absolutely switchable between first and third. And we have these random dimensional rifts occurring right now, where the Tsihu pop out. And right now, we have debug tags over their heads, so what you're seeing is just telling you their AI state, telling you what they're about. And this is a medium frame that I'm piloting. It's our old medium frame before the redesign and the art pass that I was talking about. I actually built this one. Flexing my limited 3D skills. And the pilot sits exposed inside. And what you see is these are actually other players. You can have up to 100 people in the zone right now. If I bring up tab, you can see that we have 4 players in here with me right now. And there's a little fun leaderboard for kills, deaths, keeping track of how many enemies you've killed. This is a Tsihu that's trying to find an enemy to attack. You also have different abilities like, oops, not afterburner. Oh, guy just grappled me. So you got to watch out because the Tsihu have grappling hooks and sometimes will snag you. I'll try to get one of my other abilities active here.
I noticed that your suit changed color. Was that a decision that you had made when you respawned, or is it something that was just automatically done?
Oh, it's just random right now. It switches you between green and red. Actually, okay. I could actually change it myself with swap skin here. I'm using C for the call down menu, and I can swap between green and red. Yeah, that's what we call a bug. That's a feature. Yeah, that's what it is. So right now, what we have is, this is not the core gameplay loop. This is really a test bed just for basic combat and things. And you can see that these are the old Sihu models, right? Not the new ones I showed you in the build, because we're currently doing an art pass. Ah. I hate those grapplers. Should nerf them. Also have Missile Circus. So this would be an example of how we have sort of dynamic encounters in the world. The idea is that there isn't going to be like a strict adherent quest system, right? That events will come to you, quests will come to you. And what's going to be in charge of that is sort of like a, call it a, if you ever play D&D, call it like a little AI dungeon master that's sitting there trying to determine how to entertain you, what events to throw at you, how many players in an area, how many enemies it needs to spawn. And so the idea is to get enough of these guys running around that when you have a base, it actually feels like a full-blown invasion. Oh. You got me again. The idea is that you're supposed to be able to dodge those grapplers when you get early warning. But let me show you what else you can do here. Alright, so this would be a zone that's not primarily under attack. And you can primarily, you can go ahead and scan for resources in the zone. So we're pulling some stuff up here. And you can see on my little compass up there, it tells me where the resources are. And then when I get close, it'll actually give me a marker. And then once I get a marker, I can go ahead and I can call down my thumping mining mech.
Oh, there it is.
There he is. And that's your dropship dropping him off. And then I can pick up these resources here. Oh, and it does attract enemy activity. And we do have chat going on right now. So these are actual servers, and we have servers in Asia, Europe, and North America right now. And again, this is just a test zone, and anyone can play this demo. If they subscribe for $1, you can get access to this demo right now. I also have a prototype plasma rifle here. Keep dying to those grapplers.
I think every time you've died so far was because of a grappler. You're right, you're probably going to nerf those things.
I'm so going to nerf them. Okay, I don't know what's going on with the sound right now. Alright. And this is a pretty small map, but what we have in the Unreal 5 version of the demo is actually an 8 kilometer by 8 kilometer piece of terrain, 16 square kilometers. It's huge compared to this. And the world is designed to be continuous. So this whole planet would basically be explorable. There wouldn't be necessarily hard edges to the zones or anything like that. So we're talking about, and how do you do that as a small team? Basically, we're planning to do a blending of handcrafted zones and procedurally generated ones. So in between all the handcrafted zones will be procedurally generated voxel terrain. And even the main zones themselves, they will be handcrafted, but they'll start with a procedural base, and then we'll build on top of that. And that's how we hope to keep the world manageable with a small team. We want to give that sense of scale without having to, literally go in and create each thing. For World of Warcraft, it would take us like 8 weeks just to model the zone before we even populated it. And again, we're not doing sort of like quests we're not placing mobs on the map or anything like that. What we do is we build dynamic encounters. And then, like I said, there's a little AI in the server that says, okay, let's spawn this encounter for this player and that encounter for that player. And they can spawn anywhere on the map. So you can get more resources here. And he doesn't have any voice lines right now, but like I said, these guys are designed to have personality. That faceplate on him is actually supposed to be like an emoji faceplate.
Does it change, like, depending on what his attitude is?
That's the idea, yeah, that he'll have display his expressions in his faceplate. And again, you have to pick these things up, and there will eventually be, anytime you call down a thumper, there'll be waves of enemies that will attack you. That actually exists in the Unreal 5 version of the prototype encounter, but we don't have it here. And this is basically it. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to build up the basic gameplay loop for a single encounter, making that thumper encounter fun and viable, getting the light frame, the character models themselves. Right now we have the old version of the character model in there. I don't think you can see it unless I go up to... Come back. Let me see. There you go. So you can see that there's actually a character in there. And these medium frames I thought covered the character too much, which is why we're moving towards the new design. But again, if you want to cover your character, that's something you can do too.
I see what you mean. You basically have to zoom in really close to see that there's actually a person in there.
Exactly. And so our new character models are so beautiful that I really want to show them off. And that's why the light frame exists too. If you want to run around and show your character, you're primarily going to be playing the light frame. Oh, when the thumper is done mining, it gets picked up like that and carted off. And that'll go back to your base, and you'll be credited with the resources. All right, I'm going to stop the demo here. And because this stream has run extremely long, thank you for your patience, Tim. It's been a lot of material to cover here.
Absolutely, my pleasure. It's really cool. Like I said, it's been a long time since I've done anything that's been gaming related, so a lot of this stuff is not necessarily new to me, but it's just interesting to see kind of how everything works from the developer side.
Yeah, it's not easy. Like, there's so much that has to go on to make a game, and we've been very fortunate to have a very strong community built around it. And it has been an adventure, and we're looking forward to getting the Kickstarter this year, getting this playable mock-up into its final phases, and we're planning to redo the website as well. Right now, the website just is a teaser. It doesn't really explain much of the game, but a lot of what I talked about can be found in the FAQ, and also our Discord community is just amazing. Like, if you want to pop in, they're happy to explain anything in the game. I'm just going to show people where they can go ahead and redeem those packs really quickly. So if I bring up the browser back here, this is our fulfillment site. This is at my.em-8er.com, Ember spelled EM8ER. And once you create an account and log into the site, you can go to your account and perks, and you can go to downloads. Account and perks will show you basically, your personal information and what skins you've collected. Like if you are part of the monthly patron program, obviously I have all the skins currently, or most of them, as well as whatever packs you've purchased. And these packs can actually be gifted. You can hit transfer and actually gift these packs to other people if you like. We also have the basic download section here. And this is where you'd come to grab the build. Now, I have a lot of sections unlocked, but most people will only have one or two sections. There is a free section for wallpapers. So if you like any of the artwork you've seen on stream today, there are wallpapers for a lot of these that you can download for free. You can also access the build if you are a backer, either a monthly patron backer or a regular newcomer backer. And you'll find things like the official Ember demo, based on Unreal 4 here. And if you want to try our experimental build with voxel terrain, that's also here as well. And again, that's if you're a backer, but you can become a backer for basically $1 here for the first month. If you want to see where to do that, you can go to the campaigns, and there's basically two main options to back the game. There's option 1, which is the newcomer packs, and option 2, which is the monthly patron. The newcomer packs are what we were raffling off today. So you can see the Forerunner, D-Gator, Deep Strikers. You can see all of them. Again, there's an option to gift here. You can set it to an email address or another Ember member. It's a very full-featured site that we put a lot of work into. Tim, if you've ever used BackerKit or considered something like that, we basically built our own version of that, if that makes sense.
Oh, that's really cool. I was wondering what interface you were using, if that was like based on anything, because I think that's really neat that you have your own delivery system for digital stuff.
Oh yeah, it's 100% custom. And we had specific needs because we do our funding on this milestone basis, and we continue to sell packs in between. And so we needed something. We looked at BackerKit, we looked at some of the other options, and it just didn't work out for us compared to doing it on our own. And we had the option to do it because we have developers, so it made a lot of sense. Option 2 is the monthly patron. This is where you get all the different skins we were showing off. All of the CSR skins and other skins up here. We primarily feature the waifus, although, this month, January skin is a male skin. We also have pets and mounts and mech skins and things like that. Some of the movies we showed you are here today. Yeah. And right now, I'm already subscribed, but you can't see it here. You can actually subscribe for $1 for the first month free, which gives you access to the Copa build that we were just playing, and gives you the Zero skin, and it rebuilds at $7.95 going onwards. And of course, there's also, I think, 3 months, 6 months, and 12-month subscription options as well. So if you want a prize today, you need to create an account on here, and this is where it'll appear in your inventory when you go to My Accounts and Perks. You'll be able to see that the pack you won down here once Ronyn has finished processing you, which doesn't take very long. And let's see, before we end the stream, let's see where you're at. Tim, let's see where you're at.
We jumped up, which is pretty cool.
That is great.
We just crossed 90K.
You crossed 90K with 1,914 backers. And from your experience, because this has been mine, you get almost the same number of backers by the end of the campaign. You almost double that number on a successful campaign. So you're probably looking at 2,800 at least.
Yeah, and so that actually might be a fair estimate. What makes it difficult is that obviously if you use any type of algorithmic prediction, it predicts it based on the first day, and it predicts based on the diminishing returns that typically happens during a campaign's length with a small bump at the end. But the reason why it doesn't work for us is because typically a lot of our first day backing is due to high level tiers selling out really quickly. The last one that we did, we actually had 6 tiers at a $600 level. Obviously, those go away within the first hour, and it throws off the algorithm. This time around, though, we actually have a lot of very high tiers that are still being funded, which means that our longevity is probably going to be better. And because we made sure to stock up a little bit more this time, hopefully it'll actually take us to the predicted number at the end of the campaign.
Yeah, that is something I found very true. It's like people want the high end options. I was surprised by that the first time I did a crowdfunding. I thought that the smaller packages would be what people wanted to focus on, but there's a broad spectrum out there, and people they just want to see you succeed, and they want to help you out however they can. And so I think the expanding the number of high tier packs you had is a good thing. And this campaign is just going so great for you, Tim. I'm so happy for you, and that we could be a part of this. And I'm really looking forward to doing more. We are doing more. We're doing a part 2 of our crossover. And I originally said that was going to be in 2 weeks, but you and I actually arranged a different date for that. So if it's okay, can I tell them the date here?
You may, yeah.
All right. So part 2 of the crossover event is going to be on the 24th of February. And that's when you can expect to see that. And I think you guys will be pretty excited about it. It's something that everyone can participate in, not just the people on backing tiers for the Kickstarter for Kamen America. So I think that'll be pretty cool.
I think so too. And again, I want to say thank you also for the generosity, simply because I think we have these two worlds going on. And I think for game developing, it might be easier for you guys to go into comics simply because you already have the artistic element. But from the comic side, going into the world of game development and being a part of that, that's something unique and it's a rare opportunity. So hopefully this is something that is mutually beneficial to both of us as we introduce both of our worlds to both of our respective bases. And we look forward to more collaborations with you and the Em-8er universe in the near future.
And I'm looking forward to more Kamen America. This has been a wild trip. I've had a lot of fun on the stream. Thank you so much for coming on and being our guest here today and bringing your fan base over. And I want to thank all the fans that came over from the Kamen America universe to be with us today. I know there's a lot and it can be a little bit confusing. It's a big universe that we're building, but the community team is excellent and they're more than willing to help you out, as well as the community themselves. We were all expecting you today, and we hope that you felt a very warm welcome that is indeed felt truly in our hearts.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you too, Tim. And thank you, Ronyn and Faye and everyone else who worked so hard, the entire community staff on this. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that goes on to support this activity. Can't do it without you. You guys are fantastic. And that's it for this stream. I will see you guys next Chief Chat, which is next week, next Thursday, where we bring it back to regular Em-8er update stuff. And then you can expect on the 24th, part 2 of the crossover. And maybe we can have both of you guys, have you and Mark on the stream next time.
Absolutely. I'm actually going to have dinner with him here in a little bit. And I'm going to make sure to tell him that for that one, he might want to find out what his username and login is for Discord, because I don't think he's used it in the last 3 years, but I know he has it somewhere.
Yeah, Discord is worth it. Just tell him it's worth it.
I'll be sure to
let him. It totally is. And we'll definitely make him feel welcome.
Absolutely.
All right, Tim, thank you again, and we will see you shortly.
Thank you very much. Have a good day, everyone.
All right, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
It is so wonderful to have the Kamen America community joining us today. Thank you, guys. And I just want to say to this Em-8er community, you guys have been wonderful. Watching you welcome the new people, just be super friendly, super cool. I mean, you make me proud. You really do. You always do. And so, until next time, Deep Strike!